I I told you what what happened to me in security, right?
You did not.
They took my freaking teriyaki sauce.
Oh, teriyaki sauce from Asian Flavor Punch.
Yeah, I was so upset. I mean, it's like one, like I said, I had to check out at noon. So, I was help breaking down and I ran back and I wasn't even close to being packed. And what I do for, especially for bigger events, I always pack like a bag within a bag because I know I'm gonna, you know, bring more stuff. And I knew Wodapalooza. I was like, considering all the weather changes and all the stuff that I came back with like 5 fucking hoodies. Hey Nadine. No, I mean, how many hoodies did you come back with? Like 3, probably.
I don't think
Yeah, you
any.
probably just gave them away, but the one thing I did, like, I didn't buy much while I was there because, well, because we're taken care of. But I did stand in line to buy from Ted and Tierra from Asia, that the barbecue sauce because I do a lot of my own teriyaki sauce because I do a lot of my own cooking, and it's so freaking good. Wow, we got a lot of people here. Look at the whole gang. Um, but I was in such a hurry. I put it in my shoe because I didn't want it to break. I figure I always put like stuff in my shoes, because that's it gives it added protection. But I didn't realize the shoes that I put it in, were in my carry on and not in my check baggage. So as soon as they pulled it aside, like, oh, you have liquids in there, I immediately thought, I'm like, oh my god, it's freaking teriyaki sauce. And I even asked them if I could just dump it out and keep the bottle or whatever. But yeah.
No way, Nadine. We got massive stamina for this stuff. We've been doing
Yeah.
it for a long time, and I've first of all, you've been talking about that teriyaki sauce and getting some of it for your own personal cooking for so long. When you got it that day, you told me, and you were super excited about it.
Yeah.
And I just want to say,
Cooking for so long when you got it. Why did
do you
that go
hear?
off?
I don't know.
No, that was me. My phone went off.
Yes. Plus, I already slept at dinner on Sunday night, so I'm good to go. Thanks, Marius.
Yeah.
um, Ted and Tiara they honestly inspire me. I
They
think
do.
now, granted that he doesn't do international travel, but he does drive to all the events that he does domestically.
Mhm.
I think he might be the only person in the fitness space that worked more events than me last year.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
The guy
100%.
is a total savage. Their story is very cool that they just like saw something, thought it could be better, and did it. She said,
Mhm.
"You could do that." And he's like, "Yeah, I can." And now they're doing it. And we had 20 plus people on our team this week for what we were doing there. And how many of them said, "This is, I mean, Rodri is vegan." And he's like, "This is better vegan food in terms of macronutrients, taste, thinking about us, people who eat like we do, than I could have got if I Uber Eats meals all weekend."
Yeah.
And we ate their stuff 80% of the meals, probably. I mean, we didn't have much time for other things. I never got sick of it. I don't think anyone really did.
No. Yeah, and by the way, it's not a paid ad. I know I'm wearing the shirt. I'm just showing love because they 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 are just amazing people. And like I said, if you're at a CrossFit event, more than likely you're standing at that long line to get some. But they move so quick and it's fresh. It's just so cool. And they probably work harder than anybody else there because they're them and their team. They were responsible. They're the official food provider of Wodapalooza, which is a huge deal to see where they've come from doing just small local events in Texas to they're doing freaking Wodapalooza and they're providing all the food for the volunteers. And they
Which
even
is
changed
like
up the menu.
volunteers plus staff is like
Yeah, yeah.
approaching 1,000 people, 3 meals a day. It is
And
a
this, yes. And that system they had was perfect. It's like they had times, they got little tickets, you just went by, grabbed them, and you move on. And it was enough to sustain you. It's like, it's everything. It's healthy. If it was something you didn't want, they would cater it to you. And a couple times they had what didn't they cook like some pasta or something like that one day as well? And they do a breakfast bowl that's amazing. But yeah, but that
Do you
was
know who
great.
this is? Do you know who this is?
No, I don't. Kieran Culkin.
Secretica? Not just
Yeah,
me.
yeah. But
Um,
um, but yeah, but shout out to
Julian,
Ted.
Julian,
Yeah, shout out to him.
yeah, not anymore food for me. Breakfast was amazing though. Yeah, I mean, look, it's I mean, Alyssa's probably was volunteering there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, when you're volunteering, it's super long days. Like quite frankly, just from a calories perspective, 3 meals a day might not be enough.
Yeah.
But the 3 meals that you're getting from them are as good as you're gonna get for the mass production, the quality of food, the taste. It's really impressive what they've grown in to becoming. And um, I think also I just want to mention a lot of what we want to talk today about is the athletes and the
Mhm.
performances and the competition that we saw there. But I do just want to say, because I've heard some other people talk about it, is this venue and the way that it was laid out to me is the best layout for a big scale venue that I've ever seen. You had to walk past all of the vendors, all of the food options, all of the stages of competition to get around the venue, which means that every person, whether it's a spectator, a vendor, a volunteer, an athlete, is getting more exposure and exposed to more things. You and I have often talked about that Wodapalooza is the premier networking opportunity for everyone in the space, and the layout catered to that. And as you and I were, walking back and forth from stage to stage on the bookends, the main arena and the sandbox, or in some cases taking a gator behind to transport equipment, it was pretty like you could see every booth, people at it, every like gathering area, people were there. Every stage was lined with people, or there's people in the stands. Obviously, the number of people would vary based on the
Mhm.
division, with the elite taking a big pull, but every aspect of the venue. I mean, even if you're a sponsor who's paying for spots on the LED boards, those were in more visible places for more people. And not to mention that it's right there on the beach. I mean, you could literally, if the fence wasn't there, you could walk from a competition stage into the water in 30 seconds. So just the totality of the setup there was, I think, extremely impressive, especially for a first year on a new place, and especially for the overall size of what they're trying to do and the number of people they're trying to accommodate.
And you know what the cool thing about it is, like, I think they got for the first time being at that venue, and as difficult as it was to set up for them, but, I think they got it right for the most part. Like, there were certain things, and Dylan and their team, you know how Dylan is like fine combing things. Like next year is going to be even better. So any complaints or any improvements that say an athlete or a vendor they bring up to him, Dylan's going to listen to it and he's going to make that change. I mean, I think that really everything you said is true, and it's probably the most amount of mean, it's like it was just easy to access everything, like I said,
And you
I
have to
want
balance 13 years experience with a
mhm,
brand new location. And
yes,
even when the CrossFit Games has moved locations, even with Rogue moving locations twice in their short history, the first year there's going to be some learning that
yeah,
happens. There's going to be some quote unquote growing pains, and they're not even pains. It's just a certain expectation. Uh, I don't. I mean, they announced Wodapalooza 2026. I think this
yeah,
is out there, but I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know if I haven't heard anything about the
no,
qualifier, Mike.
they haven't put, either one of those out, but I'm pretty sure they'll have a qualifier. I think, I mean, I think good hey, thanks for bringing it up, Pool Boy, is like, I think SoCal, and we said it before, is like SoCal is kind of like the prototype for what Wodapalooza Miami is, and I think
Wodapalooza Miami Beach.
yeah, Miami Beach. But I think in that instance, I think Miami Beach is the prototype for SoCal going forward in terms of the setup. Because what we heard from SoCal is like a lot of people said, "Oh, yes, wish there was more people like competing, especially in the divisions." But I think it was the first year. I think next year you're gonna have more people competing in those divisions, and
Yeah.
as it becomes a staple, because and they're going full blown they're going for it for SoCal. So if those are asking, is there going to be SoCal? Yes, there will be a SoCal in some capacity, and I imagine it's going to be bigger and better. And I look forward to it. I look forward to that, and I forgot where we're going before that happened, but yeah, just I think they knocked it out of the park. It's only going to get better. We're finding some things. I think the biggest complaint I heard was just the athlete area kind of being away from everything. It was a little bit further away from everything. Um, and then athletes having to walk in the sand because they didn't have pathways. They walked outside the venue to get to the athlete warm up or athlete staging areas. So, there were some athletes that would walk with their lifters on, get there, and immediately have to take out the shoes to get the sand off and stuff like that. But I think those are all small logistical things that will be changed that will be addressed. And I went back. I don't think you made it back out to the athlete warm up area, but
I did.
it's obvious, huh? You
I did.
didn't? Okay. But were you there whenever they had all the divisions going?
It was pretty full when I was back there a couple times. It was the closest restroom to the broadcast
It
booth
was in the
on that
sandbox.
stage.
Yeah, the sandbox.
But I just basically like ran in and ran out. I didn't
Yeah.
get to like actually digest if there was enough space for everyone to warm up or not. What I do know from even the conversations that we had early on about the layout is that they were aware that it was far distance from there to the tier arena.
Mhm.
And they did have like satellite warm-up things. And PFAA was on site advising and recommending things in that regard. I think those are the nuance. Like when we see what Ironically Fit says here, there's always room for improvement in all things. It's what's make us human, humble, and fallible. Those are some of the things that I think absolutely will be addressed next year. I would not be surprised if there was flooring laid down to make that walk, especially that really long one, much more reasonable. I mean, I even joked. I know some athletes competing in some other divisions, and they'd be walking by, and I'd see them and be like, "They didn't tell you that the buy-in was a 500-meter walk in the sand," you know.
Yeah, and this is something there's a couple times, those that know I was on camera manning one of the cameras, and Brian, there was a couple times at the lifting event I looked over my shoulder. I was like, man, it is stacked. And Brian, you told me, he's like, hey, when you get a chance when between heats, kind of pan through. They did have one set of bleachers there, and that was really it's true. They probably should have more bleachers because they always did a lifting event, not always, but the last couple of years they did it at Tina Hills, which had that tiered hill setting, so you could put a lot more people there, and they could all had good line of sight. I think they'll make that adjustment. But I did like how the lifting stage area, the platforms, there was more room. That was a one downfall for Tina Hills at the old location, is that it was literally like a play, like a stage for like children's plays. So you had a lot crammed on there. We had a little bit more room at the new lifting area. So yeah.
I guess. I mean, look, let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Great seeing you guys at Waza. Feel free to answer this whenever. How did you guys feel about the broadcast and how it looked? A lot of noise about how it looked. Yeah, it was. I mean, we have never done something like that before. We have heard a lot of the different opinions and perspectives. We were, being as conscientious as we could of that in real time. We have heard and talked to many people throughout the competition, after the competition. I'll just will speak for myself. Like overall, it wasn't at the level that I want it to be, but I would also say that I don't think it ever would have been. I have extremely high standards for myself, and I knew that doing this for the first time, especially in a situation that has such a massive footprint. We had 17 live streams that we did over 4 days of competition, 5 different locations from where we were doing them. We did it on the beach where there's no power and internet. You have to bring that yourself. It was windy, rainy, cold. 3 of our 3 technical guys all had delays getting there for things that were outside of our control, weather related things. So we had less time in the setup than we wanted. None of these are excuses. These are just realities of what happened. And Thursday, we weren't ready. We were basically doing a live testing on Thursday. I feel like we improved day after day. Our team was working around the clock to make it happen. And by Saturday, Sunday, we finally actually got all of our people into the positions that they were kind of intended to be at. And with all of the things up and operating at the level that not maybe at the level of, but all of the things that we wanted to have it be a part of the broadcast were finally happening there. So I'm not asking for anyone to give us a handout, a free pass, or anything else. But I think if you are trying to critically assess our output, it would be a lot more reasonable to look at Saturday, Sunday than Thursday, Friday. Not to say that we shouldn't have been prepared, not to say that we're happy with the fact that we weren't as prepared as we were on the weekend, but that is closer to what we had envisioned. And that's kind of what we will be more like. more or less looking at as our product to see like, was the product that we put out good enough from our perspective, and where can we go from there? And a lot of the product, the lack of it on Thursday, Friday was actually just because of inexperience with setup and the build in, or the stuff that happens before you get there, because so much of what we're used to doing is it takes a lot less footprint, time, whatever, to do that. So I'm super proud of the team. The work was insane. I mean, we really were grinding. Nobody, I mean, I wrote about it in the post I put up yesterday. Nobody complained. Nobody gave up. Nobody, threw a fit or a tantrum or whatever. Everyone just stuck in there, dug their heels in, did what we could do, communicated with each other, problem solved, and it ended up being what it was. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the most important feedback for me is going to come from Dylan and the team that we worked with for 40 days or whatever it was from when they hired us to when it started. And super grateful for the opportunity they gave us. It was amazing for me to get an inside perspective to the massive undertaking that Wodapalooza is. Like, I've been going there since 2017. Obviously, I've seen I think I've been to 100 CrossFit competitions to work at them now in my career. And that one it's just an insane footprint. It's bigger than the CrossFit Games. There's 2,000 plus athletes, almost 60 countries, almost every state. I don't know. So there's 1,000 staff and volunteers. There's 100 vendors. Like, it's just so massive. And I got to see a little bit more of that. And so the, empathy, the understanding that goes along with that is not something that everyone's going to have. I'm not expecting everyone to have it. And by the way, obviously, I also know that there's just people that are going to be critical of me because I'm me. So I'm proud of our team. I'm grateful for Wodapalooza for giving us the opportunity. And as I do with every competition that we go to, we're going to look back and evaluate and see what we were happy about, what we weren't, and try to improve. And I think that just in general in life, that's what we have to do.
I almost quit. But like I said, if it wasn't for just your vision, the leadership that you provided, I had some rough times because it was something that I've never did, shooting with the camera and shooting for live TV and stuff like that. And I've been a part of huge productions. Brian, when you first told me that you wanted to do this, what did I say?
You sure?
Yeah. And and people that know me, I'm usually pretty optimistic about things. I wasn't pessimistic about this. I was more trying to be a realist. I didn't think we are fully prepared for it. I didn't know if we could do it. I was more scared than anything. I was more scared of failing, and bombing it. But I at the end of the day, I don't think we failed or bombed, because at the end of the day, the community wanted coverage. I know there's people out there who I'd much rather watch it than not. Well, that's your choice. That was your choice. I'm also not a big believer. At least they're doing it for free, or at least they're doing something. Yeah, that is true, but at the same time, there should be an expectation, especially when it's us involved, because we didn't want to just put a freaking camera on there, set a camera and just like, okay, and then talk over it. We wanted the graphics, to the cutaways, all that stuff. We wanted to do everything and do it the best way possible. You're right. It's just if you can continue on getting better, if you can get past Thursday. And I thought event one went as probably best as you can with what we had. And then we had some hiccups after that. And then it got better every day. There were still things that we'll iron out. Again, I've seen so many events done on the beach, and believe me, that's one thing. The worst thing you can do for technology, anything electronic, is water, sand, and heat. What does the beach have? All three of those things, especially where we're at, when it rained, and then the cold, and then the heat. The beach isn't made for that. You need a lot of power, and generators just don't cut it. Especially if generators don't have gas or whatever, because you kind of constantly got to feed that. And then Wi-Fi signals are hard to get on the beach, especially when you have thousands of people out there, on the same signal as well. So there's just a lot of things that we've learned, and and I'm thankful for Dylan and a lot of live crew to kind of give us the opportunity and stick with us the whole time, to being positive by recognizing how hard we're working. Because I mean, like I said, anyone that knows us knows that we're running around, um, and busting our ass, and it's for everyone. Does had nothing to do with our egos. That way we can be like, oh, we did TYR Wodapalooza. Had nothing to do with that. Had more about providing for everyone.
This should this should not just say Brian. This
Yeah.
should say everybody who's in this picture. This was definitely a miss. We missed the team's award coverage. They had 51 divisions that they were doing award ceremony for on that night, ending with the elite teams. And about 10 minutes after the elite teams ended, we didn't have the final results for the women yet. And most of my team was leaving on Monday morning, and we had a big teardown to do as well. That award ceremony was originally scheduled for the Clevelander Hotel. It was an audible that was called at the last minute, and it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we should have found a way to announce the elite team. So that was a miss, and we apologize for that.
Mm-hmm. But this picture right here, this is not everyone that was a part of the team. I know we're missing some people in this picture, but man,
this is an interesting thing for me. You're talking about Dubai coverage and having me kind of commentate instead of something else. Yeah, it's just like different opportunities. I like doing the commentary because I know so much about the athletes and the teams. By the way, I just have to say, having Bill and Chase there was amazing. They really, really weathered the storm. They just rolled with the punches. They're so good at doing that stuff. It was good to see them again. I haven't seen them in a while. And at the same time, like, that's a massively international competition, and they have full-time jobs that have nothing to do with traveling to different parts of the world like Patrick and I do, and getting to know those athletes. So, I see, I don't really know what this means. Good on you, Brian, for WFP. But yeah, when I'm looking at WFP, it's like they have an international field that's a lot smaller footprint. And I think that there's definitely an interest from the community to have people on the mic that know who the athletes are and can contextualize what they're doing, why they're doing, what we should expect from them, why they didn't do what we thought they would do, which is kind of what we're going to hope to do tonight. Tyler, missed you this year, man, at the competition. As long as you try really hard and don't get the results, that's okay. No, I would not necessarily say that. And that's what we said a little bit earlier, is that we're not satisfied. Like, there's things that we absolutely wanted to do better and would hope to do better if we ever get the opportunity again. But I also think that it's, especially when you're at the forefront and you have all these people that are looking to you and working within the context of a vision that you're doing, that it can't be lost on us, the amount of effort that was put into something like that, the amount of commitment, the amount of dedication and passion and hard work. And I mean, there was a lot of people that had tons of nice things to say, complimentary things to say, congratulatory things to say. And at the end of the day, that's what's more important to me. Not saying that I'm okay with whatever you want to say of not getting the results that we want, but there's still some positive things. Commentator for WFP, I have no idea. I haven't heard from them about that, but I love doing that stuff. So if they came asking, I would absolutely entertain it. All right. I knew that we would have to talk about that probably at some point, but like I said, I want to focus on the competition, because I do think that the 4 elite divisions were extremely entertaining. I thought that there was some incredible performances. I put out predictions and rankings prior to the competition. I know John did as well. Barkley put up a thing, kind of man versus computer. I'll be eager to see how it ends up coming back. I had kind of said prior to this one that I was expecting about maybe a 75% accuracy rating at best. It's a pretty tough field. It's a 2-day competition. There are a lot of athletes traveling internationally that, sometimes they're getting there a day or two before and you're not sure how they're going to do. There's some athletes that withdrew last minute. There were some athletes that were competing with some kind of like illnesses. But the competitions were cool, and it wasn't something that I got to necessarily, well, definitely didn't get to talk about. And even with the stuff that we were doing, didn't necessarily get to fully appreciate in real time. So with the amount of time that I've had the last day or so, I've looked at the leaderboards, kind of pulled up some comparisons to kind of help point us in the direction of evaluating athletic performance, competition performance, and results that I would say were predictable and also pretty surprising. We're going to start with the individual side because that's where the competitions start, and then we'll get to the teams. I know people have different perspectives of if they like the individual or the team side of Wodapalooza better. I don't think we need, I loved both of them. And I think that they're both great for different reasons. But we'll start on the men's side here. It just kind of like a fun thing, I guess. I just pulled to the side there. You can see, I think it's somewhat random when you get people exactly right that are a little bit lower down the leaderboard. And I pulled out anyone out who withdrew from the competition. So I had picked, for example, Adler to win. I just removed him and bumped everyone up one spot because he never even showed up. Same thing with Miko Lilliorg, Andra Moistis, and the others that didn't come in. But when those guys were removed, I had Vellner in second. He took second. Tom Kingdom and Brandon Shipper were the three guys that I just happened to get exactly right. If you add those guys in with the next column that's within 5 placements, and I broke it down there for you could see, then there was over half the field that I was within 5 on, which is still a big range, but a lot of them were pretty close, 1 or 2 off. You see 9 of them there in addition to the 3. So a lot of people that I think did predictably well. We are showing the top of the leaderboard here, and I want to start with kind of 2 groups of 3 and also weigh in with we get Patrick to weigh in. I mean, we have Ricky, Pat, and James there at the top. I had picked them in that order. They actually finished in the inverted order because James finished at the top, Ricky, of those 3, and Ricky finished at the bottom. And PC, I mean, I think that the big question of the kind of last 6-7 months when it comes to the men's elite field is what to do with James Sprague. He wins the games, circumstances aside. He finishes middle of the pack in Rogue, again, circumstances aside. And we could say between all the withdrawals at the games and the illness prior to Rogue that those aren't great data points necessarily of where he's actually at compared to some of the best. But this is a 2-day competition. You had, Ricky, who's won it 2 times before, Pat, who's won it 3 times before, a host of international athletes that have top 10 games finishes, some up and coming guys like Austin Hatfield that are, very threatening. And look, James was leading after day 1. He was leading after day 2. After the games, I had said I would place him about 10th to 12th in the world. And now I'm having a hard time justifying him being that low.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, even I was still impressed by what he did at Rogue, considering what he had to deal with, coming off of sickness. But this reaffirmed it. I mean, think about if he didn't have freaking, what did he have, mono? He basically had mono.
Or pneumonia, yeah.
Yeah, pneumonia, or either way. I mean, that's for an endurance athlete that we thought he was. Yeah, I'd like to see what he would have done at Rogue. I mean, but here we are, at Wodapalooza, which is, it's a unique competition. To say that the people that win Wodapalooza are the fittest or whatever. I mean, only the games has that right to say the fittest. And in that case, James is the fittest. Now, does that mean he's the? I mean, again, I guess that's the games can say that, but in reality, is that always the truth? Maybe not. Was Graham Holmberg fitter than Rich Froning in any other competition in 2011? Probably not.
2010.
2010. Sorry, 2010. A lot of arguments say no, but at the end of the day, he had that title. So, but for James to back it up with a different type of competition, it blew my mind. And I think in my own personal rankings, I would have had him maybe a top 5, but for him to go out and win this thing, kudos. I mean, I'm a believer now. I'm a big believer in him. And the things he improved on, like his strength,
Yeah.
like, you know, you wouldn't think the ring muscle up workout would be his, just like that, and I go back to that final workout at the games, the thrusters, and for a longer athlete, he has a longer range of motion. Longer athletes usually don't, they have to, they usually aren't that. I mean, that guy goes full range I mean, he goes below parallel on all his squats. And so when I saw that workout as a final event, I'm like, James is going to win this because he
Well,
already,
I didn't think he was going to win that, and I know
I did.
John's in the comments, and we're going to pull up a couple of his comments here at some point. But I think that John and I both had Austin Hatfield winning that last event,
Yeah.
which he did.
Well, yeah.
The
But
two
for him to
things to me yeah, it was amazing. But and I would say, as amazing as it was, I thought it was actually his third most impressive performance of the weekend, and that's not counting the first event, which he absolutely humiliated the field on.
I mean, I picked him to win that one. I mean, those are
Yeah, same.
that's a home run.
But not the way that he did. Like, I thought there would be a couple guys that would be closer to him. That was a genuine walk-off dominating performance that is standout. But for two different reasons, the high stakes tight ropes finishing second. And look, I liked the event overall, that particular one overall, because hey, Rodri's here.
Hey, what's up?
Brother?
You should be freaking, well, I guess you should be on a beach somewhere. Another beach.
On the high stakes tight ropes, besides James, who took second in it, the guys who finished in the top five, I think, average about 5'8" in height. And even though the event was, a blend of many different things that you needed to be good at, specifically the wall facing handstand push-ups, the managing the heavy dumbbell, and also not making any mistakes on the long handstand walk. There's like, especially, attention and under fatigue to be able to execute on those 45-foot sections when you're tired and racing. And, for James at 6'2" or 6'3" to be amongst those guys and in the top five there is something that historically people of that size want to do well in an event like that. And most of the rest of the guys that were that size didn't. And so that was impressive to me. I mean, dude, look at his event finishes. 4 seconds in a first. But again, the 14th place is one that I think is absolutely necessary to talk about. Of course, I have a good relationship with Luca, and I had breakfast with him one of the days before the competition there. And he was talking about that. And I just kind of, because for him, he's great at the overhead. You make that a clean and jerk, and Luca knows he's going to do better, like 25% better against the field than if it's just a clean. And so I'd asked him, where did you be happy? 20th, 10th, somewhere in between. He's like, 20th would be a bad finish for me. 10th would be amazing. And he kind of said the same thing about James, that we should be pretty similar on this from a strength perspective. I think Luca took 18th or 19th in it, and James took 14th. But how often have you and I talked about that the difference on marginal finishes, taking 14th instead of 18th, can be the difference between a win and a loss at the end of the competition? Yeah. And so let's just say he had 61 points on that event for finishing 14th. And we scroll down to Luca, who had, I think, let me just get his exact finish. 19th place, 46 points, 15-point difference. And if you go to the top and you take 15 points off a score, okay, he still wins, but it's 9 points closer. And it's like you just see how things can tighten up. So to me, when you talk about James improving on specific things, seeing him do that well on the wall-facing handstand push-up workout and the weightlifting workout relative to where he might have been at 2-3 years ago, or where people his size are generally at, this guy is genuinely scary to me, and someone who is still at a young age, if he's not in the top five, like definitely coming into every competition right now, like I don't know how you can't put him in the top five right now.
I agree. And I think one thing we failed to mention is his execution. And I give credit to Torres on this too, and James's camp. Like he knows he wasn't going to win some of these events. He knew it was going to be, he's not going to win the lifting event, but he executed to his plan. So that way if he doesn't execute to his plan, then he doesn't win the event. I mean, if he doesn't hit that last jump or that last clean, then he doesn't, more likely he finishes 30th or something like that against this field, and he doesn't win. But his execution on everything was just flawless. And every time I talk to him about it, it's like, hey, I had a plan and we did it. And that's usually the difference. And we'll talk about a couple athletes here that, Ricky being one of them, who I think it came down to maybe it might have, Ricky's been known to like have some execution errors throughout, competition sometimes, not for the lack of trying. It's just he just misinterpreted it. But I think James is such a student and he trusts everyone around and he trusts the process. And we're seeing it. That's why he's the athlete he is now, is that he's stuck. He could have left. He could have tried something else. He could have went to a different program. He could have went to Mayhem or something like that. He has relationships with Mayhem, but no, he trusted Torres. He's stuck with it. And he knows that Torres is, he's coaching his main rival, one of his best friends in Dallin Pepper, every day, person to person, but yet he still trusts them to do this. And this is what you're seeing as a result. So, I think that's something that needs to be recognized with James. It's not just the performance of what he can do, but how he executes. And right now, James is probably executing better than anyone right now. And that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the results you see.
Vellner finished in second. I wouldn't say Vellner's comfortable in second place, but I mean, I was having this conversation with a couple of people on site. I'd be curious your opinion of it. I'm not like, don't no one overblow this out of proportion, but in some way, it's just as impressive to me that guys like him and Brent could be relevant in every competition they go to threaten for a podium spot. Yes, there are some one-offs. We know about the 2021 games, 2019 games,
Yeah.
Vellner being sick at Rogue this year, whatever. But for 10 years now, or 9 years now, these guys are a podium threat at the games, at Rogue, at Wodapalooza, at Dubai, semifinals, anywhere they show up. And you contrast it with someone like Fraser or Froning, who had a much shorter career. And yes, they were winning everything they do. But there's a different kind of excellence and legendary status to me that can be attributed to somebody like this, who can stick with it over a decade at the highest level as the sport continues to get younger, continues to get more competitive, new blood, new people, more international. These guys just stay there. And differently from Rich and differently from Matt, Brent and Pat have done it while having jobs earlier in their career, getting married, having kids, and still continuing being involved with the PFAA. Think about what Fraser talked about when he retired. I didn't focus on anything except winning. And he did. Think about why Rich retired from individual. I wanted to have kids with my wife, and I wasn't able to commit everything I could to that. How the heck are Pat and Brent still able to do this with all of the other things that they do and the continuing pressure of the field mounting against them?
Well, I think if they that philosophy that Fraser had, I don't think many people could do that, where it's just training. I mean, we kind of saw that with Hopper, where Hopper moved up to Vermont, was kind of put in that environment, and he didn't really thrive. He's thriving now because he's comfortable. He's around his wife. He's in a nice, comfortable setting. I think if Vellner or Brent did what Fraser did, they wouldn't be as successful, or they burn out a lot quicker. And I think what you're seeing is, for people that wrote off Vellner after Rogue, I'm like, you gotta understand, this guy is Vellner's so freaking fit. You can't he was sick. And he admitted that he wasn't himself, and he was more disappointed because he doesn't want to use that as an excuse. But he finished. Yeah, he's not happy with second by all means. But I think if I had to put him again, and it hurts me to say this because I love Ricky. I love that guy. But right now, it's like Vellner is more of a podium favorite at WFP or the games than Ricky is right now, because you know what you're getting with Pat. Pat's going to be consistent across the board, and he's going to be a contender, and he's going to push you.
These comments are great, and I think the love for Vellner is obvious. And Ricky's the next guy there that I had ranked. He obviously wasn't the next finisher, and we will talk about Austin in a second. But yeah, I mean, look at Ricky. It's like, for one reason or another, he just continues to come up short of the general expectation. Rolled his ankle at the games, fell off on 2 events at Rogue, made some execution errors in Wodapalooza. Like, this year he has fallen short of the expectations. I don't think it has anything to do with changing a camp. He hasn't had a long enough time of it at a new camp or with a new coach or in a new environment for that to matter. And sometimes you just look at people in sports over the years and you feel like they're snake bitten, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, and I don't know. Something just like I'm not sure. I've often wondered. One of the things that I remember Brent talking about as he got later in his career, because look, even though we don't have the full sample size with Ricky because we lost 4 years due to him failing that drug test, he's approaching 30, right? And he's kind of getting into that echelon where you have to be super conscientious of what you do, setting yourself up for these runs at podiums at these competitions. And Brent talked about a few years ago that, if I have 6 pieces in a training day and I get to the fifth one and I'm like, man, something just doesn't feel right with my lat. He doesn't do the sixth one because
Yeah.
to him, it's not worth it to do the sixth one at the expense of missing 6 days. He wants
Yeah.
to string together consistency over months and a year that's priming him for specific competitions. That's what I think makes Jeff Adler so great. He doesn't
Mhm.
take the risks in training to compromise the performance at the competitions. I don't know if he's spoken much publicly about why he didn't do the competition, individual competition at Wodapalooza, but I would guess that it's something along the lines of what I'm talking about right now, is that he didn't feel like his body was in the correct condition to
Yeah.
give the effort that he wants to be able to give in both an individual competition and a team competition over the course of 4 tough days. And he prioritized the team, which I think was probably the right choice. So,
Mhm.
when you look at Ricky, like one of the things that you love about him is that, what do they say? The mongrel, the
Yeah.
stubbornness, the ferocity, that he refuses to quit or give up. But is there the potential that that also is a hindrance to him that keeps him as like a fourth, fifth guy instead of a 1, 2, 3 guy at some of these competitions?
It could be. I also think, and I had a discussion with Ricky about this, that, look at who finished on the podium: Austin Hatfield and James Sprague. These athletes have a very small window to find greatness in the sport. That window, I mean, Justin Medeiros is a perfect example. I hope Justin can get back to being a podium contender, but he was in that transition period between Fraser to wherever now. I mean, there's not a singular great athlete right there now, but you have the down pepper, you have these younger athletes. So I think Ricky's in a position right now where he maybe that window is gone for him now. I hope not, because Ricky, there's no one that, like you said, the mongrel, the competitor that he is. I think there's no one better like him in this field right now in terms of like he's gonna sell his soul to
He's the
get.
guy like from the movie Warrior that would still go in the ring with a arm that he can't use.
Mhm.
Mike
I
Mike
like.
has an interesting point here. You
Mhm.
want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think the reason why is because they have lives. When you're in a camp, you can't have this routine. When you're in a camp, there's routine. You got to be at this certain time because your coach is available. You have to be this because your training partner. Everything's encompassed around like the what time the gym's open, what time you have body work, blah blah blah, all this stuff. A camp gives structure. These athletes don't need that structure because they have lives. They have families and stuff and families, kids, maybe even jobs, and they're just used to it. They're used to training on that island by themselves, but at the same time, they have the support they need. Where some athletes, they need a camp for that support. Um, yeah, just as
John,
reminded.
you and I going to do a podcast again sometime soon? Justin is very lucky that Pat is incapable of making mistakes, is incapable of making mistakes. I would say is incapable of avoiding making mistakes across a
Yes.
12 to 15 event comp. Yeah,
Yeah.
2018 was a really clean run for him. Um, yeah, I mean, and that's part of it. That's what we were talking about when you were talking about James, that execution. And as good as Pat has been over that longevity of his career, obviously there's also been some of those things. So it's super valid. Let's talk about Hatfield. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's
um,
John's boy. John's in the chat, so I mean, I'll give John a lot of credit. I wasn't a big Hatfield believer because prior to that, what the only data point we had was Crash, and I'm not saying Crash is it's a different competition, a level of competition. I came away a little bit impressed. I mean, I did like what I saw at Syndicate, but then there were certain things that I didn't like. I was like, you know. But then at the games, he's that home run hitter. I mean, he's that guy that can win events and come out of nowhere. He's I'm trying to think. He kind of reminds me, if you want to kind of go back, he could be something like, I don't know if he could be the next Fraser. I mean, again, the comparison's there, but I think he's more in line with maybe someone like a Josh Bridges or a Dan Bailey or even a Scott Panchek. And I know a lot of people might say that, but those are guys who are podium contenders that win events and that have specialists. But Austin, I mean, I've been proven wrong by Austin already, and I hope he continues to prove me wrong. But this event, I'm very impressed. Very, I mean, look at the results. Look at those results across every single event. What was it? How many seconds did he have? How many wins and how many seconds?
I was trying to find something else. Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
Hatfield, he slow start and then first, second, first. 3 out of 4 wins to end the weekend. Takes second on the lifting event behind Superhuman Anomaly and Guy
yeah,
Maeros. 9th on the opening event, which I actually was talking to him about that event. He I don't remember exactly what he finished on the chat at the games, but he did better than I thought he would do. He's a decent runner. He's can hold his own on the bike for the size. I know there was some conversation about the sled event. John probably has more information about this than I do. I think Andrew was talking about it a little bit yesterday, referencing it. John, if you want to pop whatever happened to him on the sled event in there, I know he beat Guy in training on that. Guy beat him on that one, and you thought there maybe was some inconsistency in the event that you didn't love. I thought Andrew talked about it pretty well in just the context that Wodapalooza is a different competition than the games is, and that actually that event was really cool, really fun. Keep in mind, it was also a community event, and that just like how often are you going to get a chance to drag a sled through the sand, and that giving 2,000 athletes or whatever it is a chance to do that is something that you have to balance against the perfect opportunity for a fair competition. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I do often talk to competitions about that the elite competition has to be considered differently than the community competitions, not to say that they're better than, but to say that they're different than, because these are people who have invested their lives in making this a profession, and there is big money on the line, and small nuances like that can have a big effect on the leaderboard. And as we were talking about with James in the lifting event, and I do think that there's a potential that if this event was administered in a completely unbiased way, which I'm still not convinced that there is a way to do that when you're moving a
no,
sled across a competition floor of any kind, that Austin might have won this thing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, to answer your question about Chad, he finished second in Chad. To James. And I think by let me see here, maybe a minute. Less actually, Austin lost him by 9 seconds.
I was
So
I was having a hard time focusing that day, but
no.
I knew he did well on the event. And
Yeah,
look, the comment about is he the next Fraser? Let's see. He's
yeah,
about the same age that Fraser was when he was kind of coming up. Fraser had a semi breakthrough performance in the Northeast where people were that one year where people were like, who is this guy? And then the next year was 2014, and he won the regional and took second at the games, and he pretty much won everything after that. Austin still needs to take that step. John obviously believes that he can. There's other people that are coming along and thinking that that's the case. I feel like I was probably a little hesitant to put him in a top 5 position coming into this one. I don't feel like I'll have that hesitancy the next time he lines up on a competition floor. The other thing I would say is I liked the fact that the WFP held a few invites until after Wodapalooza, and you see Lucy Campbell and Danny Spiegel getting an invite. There's only one remaining spot on the men's side. Everyone's assuming it's Jeff Adler. If for whatever reason it's not, it should definitely go to Austin Hatfield.
100%. 100%. He certainly deserved it. If not, I mean, to ask someone like that, you know how I feel about like the qualifiers, especially for someone like that. You know, what you're doing is you're taking away from what the fans see. If you have an event like that, and you don't have, it's just kind of like the games where James is like, he's kind of haunted by not having Adler there. Well, the WFP will probably be haunted for not having Hatfield there, competing amongst the best. And they said, well, we're giving him a chance to the qualifier. Well, the qualifiers, that they run along the same they're parallel with the games. There are going to be some athletes that do and some that don't. But I just can't. I find it hard to believe that, you know, I look at him now, and now he's got individualized coaching for Mayhem. So imagine, like, he was able to do this stuff before going off the template Mayhem athlete programming, and now you have this. Now he has an individualized coach. I don't know if it's Jake Locker or somebody else, but to have that attention and that care now. Let's see what happens with that. I mean, if that's the case, if this is the result of having that individualized coaching now, then you know,
Who's the
we might be
last pick
seeing.
for W? Yeah, I mean, who's the last pick for WFP if not Hatler? Everyone thinks it's Adler. There's 2 spots remaining for the women. Everyone would say, like, is it going to be Tia and Laura? But they have to sign. When it says signed, that means that a contract was agreed upon. And who knows what the range of contracts that they're signing with these athletes is and what the negotiating process is. What I'm saying is that Hatfield would beat half of the signed athletes at any competition that he shows up to, maybe not the same half every time. And I think that it would have been wise to leave 1 or 2 extra spots to see what happens at Wodapalooza as a pretty good, like, data point. I'm glad they did it on the women's side. I wish they would have had an extra spot on the men's side, because if that is going to Adler, I think it's a huge miss to not have Austin Hatfield be in the 20 that get the invites with where he's at right now in the competitive field. And I know he doesn't have a huge pedigree of competitions like many of those guys do, but neither does Lucy Campbell. But they had a few openings to invite somebody like that. This guy was potentially in an unfavorable sled lane away from beating Ricky Pat and James in one competition. A better answer of what? I don't think Hatfield will be missed as much as Adler at WFP. No, he wouldn't. I would love to see both of them in the field for sure.
Well, the thing is about the WFP, and again, and we'll just, this will be the last thing, and then we move on. Is that it doesn't matter after this year. The people that own their pro cards are the ones that it's not about invite; they earn their pro card. So as much as whatever you can say about the people they invited that first season, they had to do that. So if he wants to be a part of WFP, then he needs to earn his pro card, and there'll be no discussion about it. So
yeah, and it's kind of a tough decision for him, because if he wants to do that, he has to do 2 qualifiers, then 2 live events, and the final, and do well enough across the season to get in the top 20, which I absolutely think he can do. But can he do that if he's also doing the open, whatever the hell the qualifying process is for the games, where, quite frankly, if I don't know what the percentage of competitive athletes in the world that will participate in that is, but with a lot of them missing, he has an amazing opportunity to have a podium finish at the games this year too. So he might just say, fuck it, they don't want me. I'll do the game season. I'll win that. I'll podium that. I'll take top 5 there. And I'll let those athletes have the fun on that side. I mean, someone's going to have to make a choice like that. And it looks like it's going to be Hatfield.
There already are. I mean, between the conversations me and you have, there are some that have just said, because they're concentrating on one season versus the other, or some that are playing both sides. But I will say WFP, the ultimate goal is to have 5, 6 competitions throughout a whole season. So if athletes are having a difficulty with 3 competitions across one season, imagine how that is with 5 or 6 competitions along with the game season. Now, does that mean every athlete has to do 5 or 6 competitions? If it's the model like pro golf or any other things, no, they have to do a minimum of 2 or 3 or whatever. But it's still going to be hard. Still going to be hard. But at the end of the day, Austin Hatfield. I mean, hey, you got a fan. I really like. Yeah, I really like him. I think he has that charisma too. His interview, he's a Pat McAfee fan. I'm a big Pat McAfee fan. I just think he has something. He's very, there's certain things about him that remind me of Colton Mertens, and I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about just like that home run hitting ability and some of his personality.
It's like I feel like it's a certain confidence that he has. He's not afraid to call a shot. He's not afraid to say, like, yeah, I knew I was going to crush everyone on that. A couple, something that was interesting to me when I was looking back on this, at first, I was like, man, I really overvalued the European athletes. But then I was like, no, there were just some that did better than I thought and some that did worse than I thought. And some of the ones that did better than, not better than I thought, but I think represented Europe really well was Jona Koski for one, and Anil Akai is another one. And I actually knew when I put out the rankings, I was like, why didn't I have Anil in like 7th, 8th, right in there in the mix with those guys? I shouldn't have had him in 11th or 13th or wherever he was. But I think that in terms of the Europeans in the field, these comments that we saw coming in about Jona and about Anil are right on track. That those two guys amongst the European men in the field were impressive. No thought. Oh, you're writing something.
Oh, sorry. I was replying to CJ.
And to me, this was like, it was, someone had made another comment about Jonas like doing well, especially without a swimming event, and it reminded me of, oh yeah, Harry Lightfoot should absolutely be thrown in that category as well. Those were the three guys there from Europe that like held it down. They were just behind those top American guys and Ricky, and it was Yona, Anjol, Harry were 5, 6, 7, and then we'll get to number 8 in a second. I was happy to see Yona kind of back in the mix. I talked to him a little bit prior to the competition, and he was saying like, I feel like I'm back in a good spot. Then the semifinals was obviously, Koski doesn't get enough love of the Europeans. I don't know about that. I mean, 2 years ago when he finished 6th at the games for the second time in his career, and there was no swimming event that year, we were talking about that was like an incredible performance. I think everyone who realistically evaluates the sport considers him to be the second best European athlete to ever do it, at least over a long period of time behind BKG. So I don't know if it's fair to say that he's underrated. It's just when your best finishes are 5th, 6th, 7th at major competitions, you don't get as talked about as often as the guys whose best finishes are 1st through 4th. And that's where his best finishes have primarily been, is in that 5, 6, 7 range against some of the best in the world. I think that his performances at Rogue when he finishes 10th are also incredible because he's not really built for that style of competition. And that's where you see that in a competition like this, he's beating Guy. In a competition like Rope, Guy's beating him. And Guy's another guy. I mean, he finished 11th here, but like overall, I think that, that Guy has also shown to be more than just a strength specialist. The guy's got a certain level of fitness that can't be denied. What I wanted to ask you about is if you are more bullish, more optimistic about the next 12 to 24 months for Anjol or for Harry Lightfoot?
Probably Harry. I'm gonna have to go to Harry, and I mean, we both know Anjol. Anjol is a hell of an athlete, but I think, yeah, I mean, it's close though. It's close, but I think Harry. I really liked what I saw. I mean, I liked what I saw from both of them, but I think Harry right now is just like, I think he just the mental aspect. I think where he is, like talking to him, it's like he is so laser focused. And I'm not saying Annual isn't, but there's a different intensity that I'm seeing from Harry that I did than I saw from him from last year. He has a lot of confidence in himself right now, but not cockiness. And he knows there's room for him to improve, and he's seeking out those ways to improve. Like, there's here in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a huge camp here in Europe, a strength camp that's grown. He's going to it because he knows he can get better at that. And he's seeking out all those things. And I think very similar to what Annual did last year to kind of break through to this year. I think what we're seeing in Harry is just the beginning. I mean, he has the potential to be, someone like Colton, or if not better, in how his career progresses.
I mean, yeah. I think it's a tough one to evaluate. I think you're exactly on the.
Muted yourself. Oh, coughing. Mute.
You got me now?
Yeah, gotcha.
Damn.
Look at that shit. Shit's carrying over from Wodapalooza to our podcast now.
Patrick, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, he's hungry but humble for sure, and Aniol is hungry, but he is like confident, bordering on cocky. Like he takes the floor with a certain amount of swag
Swagger.
of
Mhm.
intention. I'm here, and you're gonna know I'm here. Uh, so yeah, I think both of them are on the rise in their career. I think both are set up for good years. And I would just wanted to contrast it with two European guys who did not have great competitions on the individual side, which was Luca and Moritz. And what I really want to say is that just because Agnol and Harry outperformed Luca and Moritz here, I'm not sure that they're the better two over the course of any competition that arises. What I like about this is that you don't know who's going to do well in one competition out another competition, and we're not talking about guys who are going to be likely podium finishers yet at WFP finals or Rogue Invitational games or even a Wodapalooza, but they're definitely guys that are threats at the competitions they show up to. And for me, one of the coolest parts of the sport is to see this, like, 5 through 15 sort of battle and not necessarily knowing it. I mean, look, we can talk about him now. Jack Farlow. The guy was a total bust at semifinals. He was great last year at Wodapalooza. He bounced back and he has a great performance here, and he's eighth in the mix with all these guys. Like,
Mhm.
and now we see Luca all in, focuses on Dubai, wins it, comes to Wodapalooza. It looks like he's probably just had a huge emotional drain, is my guess, and
Mhm.
finishes mid pack. So are you going to write off Luca the same way people wanted to write off Vellner after Rogue? Like, no, you can have these bad competitions. I love the men's field right now because whatever section of the leaderboard you're looking at, you don't know competition to competition which version of Moritz you're going to get, which version of Harry you're going to get, which version of Agnol or Jack Farlow or Agnol Kai is going to show up. And to me, that makes it exciting.
No, I agree. I mean, it's just it really is. I think you were kind of almost seeing that passing of the guard that
Keep
BKG and
talking.
Laz up wait. um, but we are seeing maybe the changing of the guard in Europe with for so long BKG and Lazar were competing. There it is.
Is this what
Um,
you want? Is this what you want, Lynn?
the bucket
I got
hat.
two for you.
Yeah. Um, but and we're seeing that now because with Luca and Moritz kind of like was kind of like that bridge, but now we're seeing Aniol and Harry Lightfoot and Yella. We're seeing up and comers in Europe like Colin Bosshard that are knocking at the door as well. So I mean the names that you're expecting to see at top of the leaderboard from Europe um, didn't necessarily happen, but I don't think that's any indication that they're done. I think just think if you know anything about Luca and Moritz, it was a long off season for them. A lot of travel, a lot of competitions. Um, so I was very fortunate that me and Luca were on the same flight. Heading back to Germany, he had a connecting flight to Frankfurt, and yeah, he was exhausted. He's looking forward to getting home and just relaxing and just not doing anything and preparing for the WFP season. I mean, he's got some long travel for that. He's got to travel to the U.S. twice. He's got to go to Mesa. He's got to go to Indianapolis. So right now it's just fine tuning things, but I'm sure he'll do one or two competitions here locally or maybe in the Middle East if it's a good payday. But yeah, I just think it's just all his efforts, all his soul, his everything was put towards Dubai. And you saw that firsthand. By the way, if you haven't watched that documentary by the program, please watch that. It was so well done. Um, you'll see that. And for so long,
Some good documentaries coming out. That one was really good. Also had a shout out in here earlier to Tier
yes,
for the Unbroken documentary that we watched on Saturday night. They postponed it because so many people had flights missing
travel.
coming in, including Carlos Bone, who is the big producer director of it. Um, so that was cool to watch on Saturday. But I would say both of those are definite things that if you haven't had a chance to watch yet, you should check out.
Yeah, and you know how much Carlos is my boy. Wodapalooza is like kind of where me and Carlos became really good friends. We used to hang out in the Intercontinental, just edit pictures and eat burgers and chicken wings and drink beer. and to see him progress and come out with his own doc. That whole team, he put together a dream team with Chadrick, with Steven. I mean, just the whole team.
Our
And
boy Chad on the graphics.
Chad on the graphics, and just he executed the vision that Matt and Corey wanted, and it's just a fun thing to watch. If you just watch it, it's so fun. Seeing Tia, and that was so cool. She
They did a
and then
really good job of capturing personalities of a lot of the athletes. And I
athletes,
think that
yes,
they hit on so many different emotional levels, from like the high highs to the funny stuff to the serious to the tapping into the competitive elements. You saw with Tia, you saw with
yeah,
Saher, you saw with DB. They got the passion of and then they had obviously the sentimental stuff with Lazar and Pat talking about him. That was like, and I knew it was coming, but it was still hard. It's just hard.
yeah.
And
It
yeah,
happened
just
to me.
overall, it was so well done.
Yeah, it was like I said, a documentary because we were there. We got to see it, and obviously be a part of it. I mean, gosh, it's like I had such like I remember like tearing up at the beginning of the documentary because I was so happy for Carlos because he was sitting in front of me with Maddie, his girlfriend, and I was proud of him. And then when they started talking about Lazar, I felt sad. I started tearing up. I actually started crying again because it's just I don't know. I felt like I was there again. And then obviously when Sahara came on, I was so proud of her, and you captured that moment, and you bastard. Uh, Brian's over there like he didn't even know where I was sitting, but found me and was able to. He's got video of me like just watching it, and like so proud of her and just what she did that weekend, and then at the end, Pat. A lot of people are saying, oh, there was some controversy. A lot of people took umbrage in terms of him getting that the Lazar Jukic MVP award, but if you watch the film and you watch the contributions that he had, um, he embodied that, and it shows that, and him having the last word and the way they ended it, it was perfect. So hats off to Carlos. If you haven't watched it yet, I'm gonna put the link in the story. It's free to watch on YouTube. Just watch it and have fun. I mean, people are complaining, not complaining. They were mentioning that, oh, there's not as much behind the scenes. You're not seeing that much stuff right now. This is more than behind the scenes for Tier SoCal, and you're really gonna enjoy it. Um, all right.
Good.
Do we? I think that pretty much cover. I mean, is there anyone else? Like, there's a couple names here that kind of stuck out to me. You know, I'm a big Max Creek fan. Um,
Max Krieg, best performance he's ever had. Yeah, I think I did. I think I did an interview with him. Bella was doing an interview on the tier stage, or
yeah,
the stage with either Laura or the daughters at the time. And his interview was great. He talked about kind of his evolution, the way that Pat Vellner actually has been an inspiration to him. They were talking right before the interview, so it's really cool to see him elevate like that. Our boy George, who
yeah,
we had on the show, I think he kind of overperforms relative to what most people expected. He basically said when we talked to him, I don't know what to expect. I thought he did great. It was fun to see him in a competition setting again. I hope we get to see him at some point. Nick Matthew, 10th place, back again, like best competition he's had in a while. So that was fun to see. Lago Giraldes, the 6'6" monster from Argentina. He got some
mhm,
cool shots on the broadcast for sure. Did some stuff. Bill Grundler was loving the way that he was moving the sled during the Ocean Drive
yeah,
sled race. That guy just continues to impress me. And then the last one I really wanted to give a shout out to on the positive side was the young man Connor Volts. I
yep.
mean, dude, this kid looks young, but he looks strong as hell. I wanted
Mhm.
to let me check his finishes real quick because he cleaned 370. And he also had a top 10 finish on the long running event. I mean, he had 4 finishes of 25th or worse. So like there's obviously some of the like Metcon stuff to come along. But when you can go that long and that strong and you're 22 years old, I don't know. This kid might, I made a little asterisk next to his name as someone to keep an eye on for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm kind of putting him there right now, kind of in that Drake Lewis, that category where you have a perennial semifinalist that's young. He's definitely made it onto that list of those, which isn't a bad list to be at. They're right there. Now he's on that list. Now he's got my eye now to see if he can evolve out of that list. Kind of like Max. Like Max was kind of on that list, and now he's top 10 now. He's a top 10 athlete at and is we'll see how he evolves from that. So Connor, for all those people that was giving Brian telling him to watch out, that's great. That's why we do those lists, is because there is sometimes not the information, and maybe you can help us out. I mean, I think back to someone like Yella Hosta, who a couple of years ago, a lot of people were telling me, you need to watch out for this guy. You need to watch out for this guy. He had a couple bad performances, and now look at him now. So, Connor, yeah, we're definitely keeping an eye on you.
Lynn, get in touch with me on Instagram and let me know how I can get you those hats. Let's move on to the women's field. It was kind of interesting, just from like an overview perspective. How did Cerner end up doing? He was 15th overall. I'll just give a quick shout out to George, because man, what a cool guy. I actually got to talk to him twice on site as well. Started with the 6th, 16th, 18th on the first day, 18th, 27th on the lifting event, which was expected to be his worst. Finished, which is with his second best event, 9th place. So bookend top 10 finishes. And I didn't know he would do that well on the opening event. I did expect him to do well on the last event, and he did.
Yeah.
Just kind of a silly thing. He's got the stats up there, but I had 3 men exactly right. I had 3 women exactly right. I had 6 women off by 1 spot. I had 6 men off by 1 spot. I had 3 men off by 2. I had 2 women off by 2. Like, it was weird. 6 women off by 3, 6 men off by 3.
That is weird.
2 off by 4, 3 off by 4, 2 off by 5, 2 off by 5. And the biggest difference, I had 7 that were 10 off on the men's, 8 that were 10 off on the women's. There were more women in the field though. And then I had 6 that were 6 through 9, and 10 that were 6 through 9. So a lot of competitions, I usually do better on the women's side than the men, because there's not as much depth. We had talked about the fact that this women's field was very deep. And we did a study and analysis with Apollo, Barclays database, and it showed that it was the deepest women's field that Wodapalooza has ever had. Yeah. And sure enough, my predictions reflected that in the level of inaccuracy, because there's so many good athletes in this field. Interestingly, compared to the men's side, the 3 women that I was very accurate on, or the most accurate on, were all in the top 13: Alexis, Danny, and Annika. And I mean, I just want to start with Danny to say, like, Danny always shows up at Wodapalooza.
Yes, 100%.
That is her competition.
Yeah. It's like Dad and Rogue. Danny, I mean, those 6 event, competitions. Especially at Miami, it plays to her strengths. And I mean, imagine if that run wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about Wodapalooza, is they try to program for the athletes that do both. And there were 26 women and 11 men that had registered for both. There was a few that didn't end up doing one or the other, so it wasn't quite those numbers, but there were a lot of women that were slated to do both this year. And so they're not going to have a long run in either one. But imagine, like you said, if there wasn't, and if the long run had been on the team side of things, and maybe there was a short interval style running one like the teams had for the individuals, maybe she does even better. But either way, this is exactly right.
Can you imagine if they did get the long run on for Danny on the team side with that team?
I wouldn't have picked them to do so well, and then they would have probably done even worse. But this is right. She looks like she's having fun. Love to see that for her. I know there's people that are critical of the athlete sometimes. Well, you shouldn't be having fun. You should be going there to compete. But I mean, come on. If you're not having fun when you're out there doing it, I think, Adrian Conway always posts these things from Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant was one of the things he posted recently was like, asking Kobe what makes the greats the greats. And Kobe says, I don't even need to think about it. It's love. It's love for what we do. Yeah. Like, if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to do as well. And enjoying it looks different for every athlete. So M Phrase 19, spot on. Danny looked like she was having an amazing time. Her performances were on par with what we're used to seeing from her at Wodapalooza. And I mean, that just feels like home to me for her.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start here?
Just, instead of starting with top, can I start, I do this all the time. There's 3 athletes that are always going to be grouped together. And it's Emily Roth, Amy Kringle, Sydney Wells.
Wow.
and
Not
look at
always,
it.
because I think Emily's
No,
gonna have to bow
I
out
mean,
at
I'm
some.
always I mean, they're the same type of athlete, in certain ways. I mean, obviously, they're endurance athletes, but what we're seeing is something, I I look at those 3, and I think Emily is the prototype, and I think she's from that Sam Briggs kinda line, and then she's evolved, and what we're seeing now is a further evolution of an athlete that is Emily and Amy Kringle, Sydney Wells. I was so impressed by Sydney in terms of how she's stronger. I mean, I think she finished with a 235, 245 clean, something like that.
I'll get
Um,
it here for sure. It was worth the wait. 245.
245. That's
Wow.
10 pounds off, 10 pounds off from the winning weight from Kyra Milligan and Annika Greer. Um, yeah, well, I know. I'm saying that I know that, but I'm saying what we're seeing is the evolution of the type of athletes. Like Amy Green and Sydney Wells came in as endurance athletes, but now they're evolving into, they're becoming more all round athletes. Same with Amy Kringle. She could only probably bring muscle ups one at a time, singles. Now we're seeing that she's becoming one of the best. She's gaining some of that strength. She's better more at volume than not volume, but reps and volume. Yeah, I agree. She's moving well too. Yeah, Sydney's moving so well now. Sydney's adding that strength to it. Um, she's still, and I was really impressed with that last workout because it had ring muscle ups, and she did them. I mean, she looked great on the ring. She was stringing them together, 5 at a time, and so she's evolving even more. And a year ago, she probably would have maybe did her biggest set might have been 3, and then the rest might have been all twos and singles. But she's
Yeah,
looking a lot
I mean,
cleaner.
yeah, that ring muscle ups has been a kryptonite for her. Top half finish on it, definitely moving in the right direction. Strength is
Yeah.
coming up. I think future is bright for Sydney Wells.
Yeah, but those athletes that keep on group, like I said, those are always athletes. Whenever I do rankings and I see them in the same field, I always group them together. I did it with Rogue, and what we're going to see now is like you might see a little bit of separation now, from that because I
Oh,
think
it's not just you. I ended up doing it also.
I know. But do you see how funny that works? Is like you don't do it
Well,
in a
and look how accurate we were.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
if I had just chosen to put Emily ahead of or Sydney ahead of Emily and Amy instead of behind them, then I
yeah,
think they might have all hit exactly right. Yeah,
yeah,
they would have all hit exactly right or one spot off. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, they're right there, kind of just lurking. Emily has been, I think, 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th at every Wodapalooza she's competed at now. So it's like similar to Danny Spiegel, like comes to Wodapalooza and Emily Rolfe, we talk about how there can be a lot of volatility in athletes'
Mhm.
finishes there. Not for those two. You pretty
Yeah.
much know what you're going to get. Um, let's let's shoot up to the top of this list. So we have
Yep.
Laura there. I think she was a slam dunk pick to win it. Ends up getting second by basically a finish here or a finish there. A placement here, a placement there. When you look at her overall performance, 5th on the opener, 4th on the sled drag, 19th on the handstand push-up workout. I know there was a little controversy about potentially trying to kip some of those handstand push-ups, but I think Sevan said it as well. Like that's what the athletes are going to do, and if the judges don't call them on it, that's on the judge, not on the athlete. So I thought the conversation Andrew and Sevan had around that was spot on. And 10th on Cuban press, thought she might have done a little better on that one.
Same.
And then 3rd on the lift, which I would have probably picked her to win it. So a few points given away there, and then 6th on the final. Um, I think pretty good competition for her. Obviously, it was good enough for second. Maybe got away with some stuff on the handstand push-ups. Maybe dropped a few points on a couple of the other events. Overall, I'm super happy that she came to Wodapalooza. I thought it was
Mhm.
awesome having her there again in the individual field this time as well. It looked like she was, you know, in a good spot in terms of like competing hard, but not being too hard on herself, which is, I think, reminiscent of a lot of the personal work that she's been, broadcasting through her social media platforms over the past 6 months or so. Um, I'm never going to be upset if Laura Horvath shows up to an individual competition field. She's a podium threat every time she's in the field, regardless of who is there, and she adds another podium to her name. In the context of this like fun historical conversation that we were having, about off-season competitions. She now adds her name to the list along with Pat Vellner of someone who has gone first, and second at those major off-season competitions. You and I had been holding a little ace in our pocket that some people tried to expose earlier, that we
Yeah,
were going to say that she'd actually achieved the career Grand Slam because
Grand Slam
she's
4.
also won the games. Now we can say that she has a first, and a second in those, which would distinguish her from Pat. And part of the reason that we wanted to do that thing is because it's a fun thing to do to recognize specifically Pat Vellner, Brent Fikowski, and Laura Horvath, who were in the midst of their prime during the runs of these untouchable monsters that are Tia-Clair Toomey and Matt Fraser. And so they don't have, Vellner doesn't have a win at the games. So does that make Ben Smith and Graham Holmberg better than him?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it does, because he basically, those guys at their best didn't have to go against Fraser. The second best person in the sport during their prime never had to go against Fraser except for Vellner. And same thing with Laura. She comes in right when Tia is becoming someone who's literally unbeatable. But I've been saying it for a couple years now. Like, to me, Vellner's the third. Laura's the second best we've ever seen that have done it, and she's continuing to add to her resume.
100%. And I think CJ mentioned maybe she'll come back next year. I think she absolutely will come back next year because I think she does, there is some, she is cognizant of things and where her legacy is at as an athlete. That's why she competes. That's why you see a lot of things she do. If you get a chance, I don't know if they posted yet, but she had a really great interview with Bella, where they actually talked more about her personal life and her mentality than you do more about than she talks about her as an athlete. So I don't know if they posted that yet, but keep an eye out for that. Bella did a great job with her. I'm looking forward to watching that. I haven't had a chance yet, but no, yeah, the Grand Slam versus, that's the career Triple Crown versus the Grand Slam. Yeah, we thought it was in the bag, and along comes Lucy Campbell. So
wow. I mean, I was gonna, yeah. Let's just get to Lucy. How
yeah,
unbelievable is this story? I actually had mentioned to Andrew, like, dude, if you go to Europe ever, go, like, maybe soon, go and talk to Lucy. Like, he does such a great job going and integrating with athletes in their regular lives, and Lucy is a fun person. In an interview, she has a ton of thoughts. She's kind of long-winded for a small interview thing. We've had her on the podcast before, but I think that what Andrew does specifically with the female athletes that he's gone to visit, I think she's an amazing candidate. He's so good at taking these situations and making them understandable for the everyday person. And what happened with, what happened with her wrist,
affiliates.
and, like, I don't think people fully grasp and understand it, and I feel like he would be able to explain that in a way that would be more digestible for more people, and also I think is very needed for someone who has such a big footprint in North America media to go to Europe and do something meaningful with an athlete like that. So I don't know if he'll take me up on it. We could obviously introduce him to Cheska and to Lucy and create this opportunity if we wanted to, but if he doesn't do it, I hope somebody does it. The problem is that when the European filmmakers make the documentaries, the North American audience doesn't consume it. And when the North American filmmakers make it, the European audience doesn't consume it. And we need a little bit of that crossover. And Andrew, I think
Peter's proven that. Like, he's done some great work with Lucy McGonigal. He's done some great stuff with some athletes, and it's just not getting the views. And it's been good. Like Lucy, it's just, yeah, but you're right. And there's a lot, not just the risk, but like, and Lucy lost her community. Like, the affiliate that she trained in was just, it closed down. So she's been kind of out there by herself. And just trying to train, trying to maintain, you know, and maybe that might have delayed her coming back because she didn't have that support system, outside Cheska and, some people here and there. But I think, with the wrist injury, her going back to her community probably would have helped her out a lot. But then the end result, is what we see here is just a beast. So proud of her. We
well, let me
both,
and let's push in case anyone doesn't know, because I picked her in the middle of the pack, 20th,
Yes.
21st, something like that.
Yeah.
This competition, just want to remind you, 6 events. In the last 6 weeks prior to the competition, it wasn't really clear if she could handle high volume handstand walking, ring muscle ups, or a heavy clean. It wasn't like those all were piled in one event. Those were 3 events. Granted, there was a lot going on with the handstand walking, but the muscle ups were critical, especially on the women's side. They always are. And basically, she won the competition because she could do the last 5 unbroken and Laura couldn't. And the lifting event with the heavy clean, she was doing cleans in the half zombie receiving position up until and her event finishes 4 seconds, 7th on the handstand walk and handstand push-ups, 36th on worth the wait. But if you go back and watch, absent of the final, which was one of the coolest, most genuine, relatable celebrations, runs to the finish line that I've ever seen in our sport. I could just watch that on replay over and over. I felt so happy for her. It was such an incredible embodiment of what just was said in there about the patience over 2 years. Watch the end of her lift. Yes, she just started doing ring muscle ups I think it was like a month ago. And when go watch the lift, that last lift that she hits at 210 pounds, I think that was the best win for her. And her wrists were taped heavy for that. 4 seconds to 7th and a 36th on a lifting event. And if it, like, what's the potential? What's the upside for her? I think it's really freaking high.
I think so too. I mean, we saw this at the games. I mean, she won 2 events as a rookie, and granted one was the swimming event, which she's a great swimmer. I mean, her and Tia are probably the best swimmers out there on the women's side, but she won the final, which was pure CrossFit. So she has that capacity. We've seen her
rowing thrusters and bar muscle ups. So, you don't accidentally win that.
Yeah, that's especially with Tia and Laura Horvath in that field, and that was out of she was in the second heat or third heat. So,
and she's and as good as she is an athlete, she's even better as a broadcaster.
Yeah,
I think
we had those conversations. Yeah.
Obviously, we were working on the broadcast. We were interested in having her be a part of the broadcast of Wodapalooza. I'm incredibly grateful that she wasn't because I want her on the competition floor. That's where she wants to be. But I think that we're going to see her in some. Obviously, she's signed with WFP, and we're going to get more and more chances to see her compete. I also think that whether it's now or whenever she stops competing, that if she wants to, she'll have some opportunities because she's gifted in both aspects.
Oh yeah, she's just a great person. I mean, like I said, hopefully you guys have seen that across the last couple days. Having that spotlight on her, but yeah, just great. I mean, she's just a cool person and a great human being, a great ambassador for the sport, and I just hope again, my hope for her is that all these things that she's been doing, it ends up that she just stays healthy and she keeps on sharing her story. And yeah, it's great job, Lucy.
Well, I want to talk about Alexis Raptis. She was the 3rd person on the podium. And prior to this, the most prestigious podium finishes that she's have been at semifinals. She's done it twice at Syndicate Crown in 2022 and at the East semifinal this year. She hasn't made a podium at the games or at Rogue. It's her first time competing at Wodapalooza. She hasn't competed in Dubai. Is this her best performance yet? Is this her best accomplishment yet?
I don't think it's her best accomplishment. I think it's the how do I say that? It's not her best accomplishment, but it's the healthiest and the best version of her that we've seen ever, as since she became an elite individual athlete.
Right, because you could date back to her teenage games years where she was 4th and 2nd in 2 consecutive years in the older teenage division. And I would say, back-to-back 6th place finishes at the games, especially the one in 2023, I think was probably like
when she had leader jersey on for a number of events.
Yeah, but just now stringing together 3 straight top 10s, 2 6th places at the games, a podium finish at Wodapalooza, 2 podiums in a semifinal in North America East, which is probably the most difficult one to do it at. Alexis is continuing. She doesn't do a ton of competitions, but she's just continuously putting up impressive performances. And yeah, we're talking about on the men's side, like that 5 through 10 range, where like she's solidly in that group. On the women's side, I'm just curious if she's like, how close is she getting to being a top 3 athlete in a full women's field?
I think she's very close, and I think this is the reason why. She said she was sick. She wasn't sick during the competition. What if those that remember a year ago, a little over a year ago, she had she was diagnosed with this colitis, which is basically she's sick. When I talked to her at SoCal, she was still sick and really hurting during SoCal. She deals with a lot of stomach problems, a lot of pain, a lot of cramps. But she said that she told me then that she was starting this new round of medication, because that's a weird thing about the medication is like you'll find a medication, you start liking it, or your body responds to it, but then after a while, you lose that immunity, you lose that. And so, but she's right now, the medication she's on now, it's like she's the best she's ever felt. And you can tell that in
Mm.
her body as well. And she just looks healthier. She looks great. And if you watch it or listen to her interview with Bella afterwards, she keeps on smiling. She says, "This is the best I've ever felt in 5 years." And if that's the case, then watch out for her this year. Um, she does a really good job of keeping herself healthy. I believe. I don't know. I don't think she's down at TTT anymore. I mean, she still trains with them. I think what she did is she moved back home, or at least back to Michigan, to be close to family. And usually that ends up being a good thing when you make a move like that. Just feeling better about yourself. And if you watch that documentary that Hiller did, you'll see that, and yeah, this is the best version we've seen of her, and I think it only improves from here as she gets stronger and more comfortable with herself and what she can do out on that floor.
Couple Europeans round out the top 5. Emma Tall, Elisa Fuliano, both really impressive performances. I think that I mean, I know David Schranke, who's Emma Tall's partner and coaches her at these events when he's not competing, was kind of disappointed in the way that the final played out from some of the judging perspective and the standards with the controlling of the barbells, and he believes that it cost her a podium, or maybe even better than that. But overall, like putting those potential controversies aside, another very impressive performance for Emma Tall. I've always kind of I recently have said that, like, when she's healthy, she's one of the top 10 in the
Mhm.
world. I stand by that. Talking about Alexis Raptis clearly being in that mix, and Emma Tall being potentially a judging call or two away from beating her at this competition and being on the podium herself. She had 3 top 5 finishes in the middle of the competition. Takes a little bit of a hit on the weightlifting, where middle of the pack is kind of normal for her. 13th on the opening event, and then that worst finish of the weekend coming on the last one. I was not expecting that. I actually probably do. I didn't see it in real time. I only saw what David had said about it after the fact. And you know, that controlling the barbell down standard is there for safety, but it's like finding this balance between safety and fair play. And you're like finding a way to make sure that safety, like safety obviously is paramount, but if it's coming at the cost of fitness, then, I'm not saying one is more important than the other, but there's got to be a way for both to be expressed at a
There's
high level.
Yeah, there is common ground. I think that's just the objectivity of judging. We there's always some inconsistencies from one lane across another, and I think David and Emma have a right to complain about something like that. If one athlete's being penalized for it and others aren't, then yeah, you should be. But it's a hard situation to put yourself in. I really thought she had it because she's one of the best in the world when it comes to ring muscle ups. And she's, that weight is no problem for her, but for her to get those those no reps on those on a barbell movement, it's unreal. But you know, I guess, you know, I guess when she made an appeal to it, they saw it the judge's way. So I don't know. I didn't really get to see too much of that.
When you look at
Elisa?
Fulia, yeah, Lisa, she's had a pretty good a season. She's had a pretty good couple of years. I'm just looking at the WFP roster for the women's side. Obviously, if Tia and Laura are taking the last two spots, so be it. That'd be great, right? Everyone wants to see them compete. If one of them doesn't or neither of them do, just looking at the other Europeans in the field, you got Amy Kringle, Mano Nangonese, Emma Tall, Emma McQuaid, and Lucy Campbell. I think that it's not even a question that Elisa Fuliano is better than Mano Nangonese and Emma McQuaid. Do you think that she's deserving of one of these invites if there's a spot available?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's two athletes from Europe that I think, well, from Europe/Asia that I think should be amongst that field. And Elisa is definitely one of them. But again, I mean, if she wants to compete, I mean, who knows what she does this season? She does the game season or the WFP season. Doesn't But if she does WFP season again, you get to reset it and get that pro card for next year. So you know,
I'm not sure exactly what the credentials are. I mean, if you're just looking at the games, she withdrew this year, so you don't have it. She was 20th the year before.
mhm.
She has some of her best finishes at Dubai. She was been in the top 10 the last 2 years, 9th and 5th. She had a great finish here at Wodapalooza. She's had 3 consecutive top 10 semifinals finishes, making the games 3 consecutive years. Like, I don't know exactly their criteria, but I'm looking at her and what she's been able to do and some of the other athletes from Europe that have gotten the invite. And I'm kind of hoping that she's on the radar if she's, if at least if she's not getting that pick. And I will be interested to see what she chooses to do this year.
Yeah, the criteria is heavily favored to the Rogue rankings, and then they threw in a little bit of their rankings in there too, their own determination based on popularity or potential. But it's been on record that they use the Rogue Invitational, which I think is their rankings is it's based on the Rogue athlete. The type of athlete does well at Rogue. So if you're having a competition that is similar to Rogues, where it's more strength based, more odd object based, then by all means use that. But if you're having a competition that's supposed to tell us overall fitness, then you shouldn't be using Rogues Invitationals rankings. That's just my opinion. I know Mayhem Invitational is using the same Rogue rankings as well. So and that's a semifinal. But that's what it's based off of. So Elisa, who and the other athletes, Sahara Kaya,
It's just like mayhem is mayhem, like whatever,
yes.
because that's not it's not something that's putting the title world at the start of
Mhm,
its title. If you're
mhm,
saying World Fitness Project, where's the representation of the world? I've been tracking. There's one woman from Oceania, 5 from Europe, and the rest are North America.
mhm.
At
Yeah.
least there's one male from South America in Gi, and that's an easy choice, but there's 0 athletes from Asia, 0 athletes from Africa. And I like the fact that the games always holds a spot for those.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know, like, if I'm going to put the word world there, I think that there should be a way to consider the totality of the global population in terms of selecting these. Now, if you're talking about year 2, totally different because
Yeah.
there's a qualifying process.
Mhm.
But in year 1, to say you're the World Fitness Project and to have a system that is based on Rogue that is not going to have this totality of global representation, at least one spot for um, a continent, male or female. If you gave me one male from North America, one female from Asia, I would already be happier, especially because firsthand from going there that the Asian market is massive. You don't think Sung Young Choi would be a good choice for this, or Sahar Kaya would be a good choice for this? You're losing a huge part of the community. And really, that is I'm not saying that WFP and CrossFit are the same in any way, but
Yeah.
but CrossFit is a global fitness movement, and the
Mhm.
fitness project is called World, and it's so easy to remain focused on the things that are close to you. And for us,
Mhm.
that's in North America. That's why you and I have made such an intentional effort to go and meet people from different communities, to go out of our way and spend our money and go to places that others aren't going to see what's going on there. Do you think they're going to change the name for the first year? No.
No.
No, the name is great. The name
Yeah.
is great. But I think that it would have been, I was kind of expecting to see at least some representative from each part of the world, since it's just, yeah, there might be a qualification system, but at the end of the day, they can do what they want,
Yeah.
including recognize that North America and don't think they're going to. Sorry, I misread it, T-Bird.
Yeah.
Including South America and Asia, which are massive footprints for global fitness.
Especially since, like, I'm sure part of their I guess overall end state is to have competitions in those regions. You know, expanding next year. Maybe they do have one of those stops, one of those tour events in Asia. Whether, I mean, if you're going to do it in Korea. You know, if you're in, if you got to do one in Australia as well. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, again, I'm going to give, as much as it, I'm affected by it, and other athletes are affected by it, and some athletes are affected by it. Some athletes are upset about that, but at the end of the day, it's their business. They can do what they want. And they felt it's more beneficial to have your first year, to have the most, a combination of the most popular athletes and most
Yeah, but
popular.
popular is a relative term, and that's what I'm trying to say is
Yeah, I
that
know. I agree. And then maybe that's just a lot.
popular is not just the most followers on Instagram.
I know. I know.
Popular is that there's 250 boxes in Seoul, South Korea alone,
Yeah.
and that you know,
And they are chomping at the bit to have like North America. I mean, we saw the reason why it was so crazy at Road this year, because they're not used to seeing those athletes. They're not used to seeing, Tia competing in Scotland. They're not used
think
to
about.
seeing.
You want to talk about Rogue? Talk about Yorgos Karavis.
Yes.
Greece and the Balkan region is a huge hotbed of fitness. We know from going to Athens Throwdown, Eurasia Throwdown, Belgrade, and then being there and learning about other competitions that are big deals in their countries, in Albania, in Croatia, in Bosnia. We're in Malta. We're trying to get to some of these. It's hard. They don't have the same kind of financial resources that other parts of the world do. So not everyone knows about it. But Yorgos going there and taking last still brought in a huge market of interest for watching that wouldn't have been as interested if he was there. And there's still a group of people that would watch because the best in the world are there. But there's a bigger group of people in that part of the world that will watch because he's there and he's their king. He's their leader. He is the best global representation of fitness in Greece or the Mediterranean region that exists right now. And they want to see that, and they're excited to see that. That's what happens with Guimaeros. That's what happens with a guy like Lago Giraldes. That's what happens with a guy or a girl like Seher Kaya. Like, put some of these people in this field. If you have the opportunity to invite them, I'm sure they had conversations about it. And there's still 2 spots available. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We got a little derailed there.
I know we did, but my and
I'm also just excited about the WFP season. So it's kind of, I feel like it's for us, it's probably like the next big thing that's coming up. So,
yeah. But for WFP, I would also say, and I don't know if you've had these conversations, but, talk to Gretchen from the IF3. She can give you the best numbers, the best everything that you want to know in terms of global representation for the sport of functional fitness. Fikowski met with her this weekend. She has a lot of great ideas. She's doing some things that aren't being talked about with the IF3. I know the IF3, everyone's like, well, it's a joke. But the thing is, it's growing the sport in Europe, in some of these regions, better than anything CrossFit's doing right now. But okay, back to that. Talked about Lisa, Emma. Let's see, Abigail. you one spot off. I mean, Abigail. She did what Abigail does. I mean, we don't have as much data on her in terms of she's relatively new. She's more of a game style athlete. She did really well at semifinals, obviously last year, but I thought this was very impressive. It gives us another data point to kind of look at her and see where she compares to some of these athletes. And I like where she's fitting in there. And that's that spot right there. She's in between, like, all around great CrossFitters versus like specialists that are really good in certain things, and you know, and she's kind of like in that median. So I think what she's shown is that she's a probably a really good all around CrossFitter or overall in fitness. Good
Yeah,
balance.
solid, respectable performance for her,
Mhm.
in amongst a lot of these other athletes that we've been talking about, and basically rounds out the top 10. Brooke Wells finishes just outside the top 10, and then a few other athletes that I want to give some shout outs to for great performances on the women's side. Astrid Peterson, I think, was
Yes.
the breakout of the weekend between taking, what did she end up finishing 12th in the individual side of things. She had an event win on the opener, which obviously draws some eyeballs, and a third to back that up. So she was, in the lead, and then just kind of dropping a little bit. But she's 5'11". I
Hmm.
mean, like we talk about Lago Giraldes being 6'6" on the men's side and being the outlier of outliers. Like when you draw a bell curve and there's a part of it that you can't even see touching the line, like that's what Astrid Tinden but Lago Giraldes are in their respective divisions. This is the tallest person that's done the best in a competition on the women's side I've ever seen. And then she backs it up and her team takes second place. She's been competing on the Butcher's Lab team. And Nico, who is working with us, a buddy of ours is from there. And he and I were talking about like, man, is she going to go indie? Like she's clearly got some talent. Obviously, she's always going to have some holes being that tall. But man, I did not know how good she was.
I saw a little. I'm not going to say I knew how good she was, but I was able to see some of that at the IF3. I mean, I heard the name before, but I'd never seen her in action. Maybe as a team, but like you said, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle on team. But I'm actually going to pull this up from, and it's kind of like a plug from Apollo. Um, and you look at some of Astrid's performances here. Oops, you gotta find the right link. Already, Barkley's got her finishing there 12th, but sixth in the Super Worlds, and she won an event there. It was a cardio heavy machine based event, and she finished 30 seconds better than the closest competitor, and she was in a heat. She finished ahead of a bunch of men too. But you see the German throw down second, primarily a team athlete, but you see some of the open finishes. The type of athlete I look at her, she reminds me. I'm trying to remember her name. I was kind of looking it up. Gosh, she does high rocks now. I think she's from Sweden.
I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm
I'll
talking.
find it. Yeah,
Um,
Michaela Norman.
yes, she reminds me of Kayla Norman, but with more muscle. Um, an endurance athlete. I think she's that evolution of that Scandinavian athlete now, where they're just better all around. But Michaela Norman's spot on. Good find on that. Um, but I was really impressed by her. I was really impressed by that team, especially for her that volume. Yeah, yeah, Nadine got it. Um, but I'll be interested to see what she does. You know, again, she comes from a good pedigree from Butcher's Lab, but they're known primarily as team. They haven't really broken through when it comes to individual athletes, but she could be the reason why. Um, but but you know,
Another team athlete in this individual field who I have not heard anybody talk about, and I didn't even realize how good she had done because she was just kind of not did not have a first and a third place finish to start the competition. Lily Burkhead from I think she
Mhm.
competes with CrossFit West Chase, two-time
Yeah,
semifinal, made the games one year. She's 24 years old. I ranked her 40th because I was checking just to see in the entirety of the Apollo database, the only data point we have for her is second place at beach ball in 2023 on the individual side. She
yeah.
finished 18th in this field. 18th. Just for perspective, that was ahead of Jen Weir, Lydia Fish, Linda Kieschman, who made the games this year, Nina Vragovich, and Mike Poolboy's girl, Caitlin Bernardin, who massively outperformed my projection. I totally missed on that one. Mike, you get the credit for it. I will not underrate Caitlin, especially in a 6-event competition
I
that has a
told
running
you.
event.
I told you
I
she
know,
was
I
something.
know. I
I
messed up.
told you
I
on the
messed up
show.
on that one.
Yeah.
I'll
We
take it.
underestimated her once. We can, especially with
So
that
she's
opening event.
Well, so Lily has apparently completed in Clearwater a lot. Nobody, when we put these rankings out, sent me a single message about how good this girl is.
Mm.
And then when I looked back at the end of the weekend, I was like, whoa. And she actually closed with her two best finishes: fifth place, 245 pounds, matching um, Sydney Wells, and taking tied for fifth on that, 88 points, and then 16th on the final. And we talked about that final from the games that Lucy Campbell had won. I mean, this final is no joke. Wall balls, hang snatches, thrusters, and ring muscle up, 16th there. She had a 21st on a long running event, nothing outside of the top 30, which, I mean, we said it's a very, very deep field, finishes 18th overall. I wonder if Lily, like Astrid, will start to appear at a few more individual competitions. And if she does, I think for me, she's the female Connor Volts of this competition. That, like, I've made an asterisk next to her name, and I'm curious to see if she shows up, because she does like to do the team stuff in individual competitions going forward. I will not overlook her.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you bring in Connor Volts, because I was going to say, yeah, definitely keep an eye on her. But conversely, someone that had a kind of I mean, we know how much potential she has as Nina Rogovic. Just like you predicted Connor 33rd or something like that. He finished 22nd. Same with Nina. Let me go back, check that real quick. Yeah, 33rd, finished 22nd. Same with Nina.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, I guess I need to separate them in my mind. Like, I just kind of put Jessica Andrazic and Nina in the same grouping there, and
And there's totally
basically
different athletes.
totally different athletes. But I nailed Jessica. I was off by, she was one of the athletes I was off by at least 10 spots on Nina. And I think she had a pretty similar performance this year to last year. So yeah, that's another athlete that, like, I feel like I missed on that one. And it's like, some of them you miss on them. Like, I'm not upset at all that I missed on Lucy Campbell, Astrid Tin Peterson, Lily Burkhead, even Ashley Cope, because I actually spoke to Ashley, and, like, mentally and emotionally, she's just in a much better place now.
He looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that can make a huge difference. It was a tough 18 months for her. She's been really positive last 6 months. And so she's able to compete in a different way. So I don't feel like bad about that. I do feel like I really misassessed Caitlin and Nina coming into this one. So apologies to them, and I'll try to not do that again. Probably I will, and someone will call me out on it, but I'll try not.
Yeah. Lexi Neely, you didn't see much of her at the games, but she won at an event. She did very well in certain events here. She won an event, and she looked really, I mean, your impressions of her, actually seeing her outside of semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, she got off to such a bad start on a long running event and then a grunt work event, which I think are probably the two worst things for her, especially the running in the sand. Like, this is just, and the box step ups and the bike. Like, what I like about Lexi Nelia is her resiliency. She doesn't give up in competition. We talk a lot about athletes who can have a bad start and it can just kind of, like, drag them down. She, to me, seems to be a fighter. She finishes off day one with a 13th on an event that should be better for her than those other two, but it's not an easy event by any means. And that ends up being her second best event finish of the weekend, along with the final. And when I look at the 6 events and I'm looking for a CrossFitter, it's events 3 and event 6 that yell to me, this person is good at CrossFit.
Yeah.
But to be good at fitness competitions, you can't just be good at CrossFit. So she's got that Austin Hatfield home run potential, that online qualifier body and build and fitness caliber, but in the elements, going long, going heavy, odd object stuff, that's where she needs to do her work. I feel like she's the type of athlete that will do that work. She's on the smaller side, but she's on the tougher side. So I think that she has the potential to have a trajectory similar to Colton, where, I mean, I don't know if she'll have the same attitude and fan appeal. He's such a unique person, but I'm a fan of Lexi Neely because of her attitude more than anything else.
Yeah. And she has a really, like, her fan base, her community is very vocal about her. I think that way she doesn't have to be. And shout out to them and shout out to her. She looked really good that final day. Lucy McGonigal, obviously you talked about the strength of this field, it being the best, based on the Apollo rankings in terms of Wodapalooza, and she's 17 years old, 18 now, finishing 15th. I mean, we're seeing her that she's feeling, as she's doing more and more of these elite competition, she's feeling a lot more comfortable. She's looking like she belongs. And I think you've seen that you know, and you can tell in just talking to her and how she carries herself around some of these other athletes.
Yeah, I mean, there are a growing number of athletes who actually have a teen resume that's so impressive. Like hers is 4-time podium athlete there, but she's putting herself in situations to gain experience. And from even talking with people like Brent Fikowski, or he was on the pre-show that I did, and she
Mhm.
came up in the conversation as part of her team, is that she seems to have this ability to she competed at semifinals mid-pack. She competed at
Mm.
Wodapalooza mid-pack. She gets an invite to Fit Fest. She's not the best there. She's not the worst there. She's just there. What she's stacking is meaningful competition experience to go along with elite fitness for her age. She's,
Mhm.
she's not the anomaly of Mal O'Brien or Emma Lawson. She's not good enough
Yes.
at that age to have a top 10 games finish. That's okay. There's plenty of athletes, Alexis Raptis, for example, that are like
Mhm.
even Haley Adams, that like she wasn't at that level. She's kind of a little lower than Haley was at that age, but
Yes.
she's in the echelon of ability that if you couple it with experience, as long as it doesn't have an emotional hindrance to her, she's only going to continue to improve. I think she's doing all the right things.
Yeah, I think the emotional and like the mindset, I think she's going to be fine. She has a good team around her. She has just a really, I think unlike someone like Emma or some of those other people women you talked about, um, she doesn't have that pressure. I think all the pressure that she puts on is on herself, and even then, she's having fun out there. One final athlete I want to talk about, unless you want to talk about someone else, is Kyra Milligan.
Mhm.
Was pretty much sitting almost dead last after day one. Talk about her day two.
Yeah, I this morning I looked and I was like, I was expecting her to be like 12th to 15th, and then I was like, wow, she started with 2 consecutive 42nd place finishes. Um, and you want to talk about like mental resiliency and the ability to stick in it. You have seen her like rise through the ranks in her career and come from someone who there seemed to be this potential, but maybe a lack of belief, overcoming that, working with Kiefer, like putting in the hours, as we just talked about some of those other women, putting themselves in this situation. She weathered semifinals, like just hanging on to that last spot to get to the games after taking a year to go team and learn from the group at Mayhem. And I think all of those experiences have put her in a place where she can have what she would probably call a devastating start, the first third of the competition, and not let it get her down and still find a way to go back out there and perform. She finishes the day with the 21st. It's not great, but it's the best of, it's a high relative to the other two. And she comes back and has the 22nd. She wins the lifting event and finishes with the 16th. I mean, overall, I'm guessing she would say this is not what I showed up here to do at all. But
Mhm.
she didn't throw in the towel. She still put forth a great effort in the final day. And I don't know where she was at the end of the day one, but she probably improved 10 places in one day against a very deep field. So I think there are still some highs to take away from that. The sled race, I don't know what happened to her on it. Maybe it was some unfortunate, unlucky thing that didn't necessarily affect fitness. I don't know. And yeah, she was on a team that was self-proclaimed not liking to run 2,000 meters of sand running. If you're not liking to run, but
You're
if she
gonna
wants
hit
to
it.
be, no, but if she wants to be better, if she wants to be great in this sport, if she wants to continue to improve, she's going to have to put in a lot of miles. I mean, that's what Dallin Pepper did. That's what Anyola Akai's been doing. And I don't remember who said it this year, but somebody, if the winner of the games is always the strongest person who can run. Like you got to be strong enough and you got to be able to run.
But it's not just running; it's the intensity that you run at.
Sure.
You can go out there and run 5 miles a day, but if you're running at a 12-minute, 10-minute,
Let's
nine
call
minute,
it meaningful miles.
exactly. Because don't get, but Kyra is a lot better runner than she gives herself
Absolutely.
credit for. I mean, I put her there. I mean, a perfect example of that is, I've seen her run like 7-minute miles. You know, she's,
I've been thinking about the running thing. Do you remember when Ben Bergeron said, probably 8 to 10 years ago, you can improve your cardio in 6 months, but it takes you 6 years to improve your strength. Do you remember
yes,
that?
yep, yep.
I don't know if that's uniformly true. There's
don't
just
think so.
different body types. I think
Mhm.
that Kyra's body type, and there's other athletes that just happen to be talking about her, that
Mhm.
it's almost inverted for her. Not
Yeah.
saying she's going to get insanely strong in 6 months, but if she puts 6 months dedicated to strength training compared to me, she's going to show more improvements. And if I
Mhm.
put 6 months compared to running compared to her, I'm going to show a lot more improvements because we have contrasting body types.
Yeah.
So she's, if she wants to continue to improve, because you're absolutely right. Like you can't hide from the running. If you want to, hey, HGR,
Yeah.
whole show is brought to you guys by HGR. Dude, HGR CBD saved my Achilles this weekend. I was running around this venue in the sand. You talk about the athletes walking in it, and my Achilles after day one were so freaking sore. And I just applied the Relieve over and over and over again. And it got me through the weekend. HGR CBD, check them out. Yeah, I think there's different body types, and that statement that Ben made, while it may be true generally, is not necessarily true for every type of athlete or body.
Yeah, I agree. But I want to give Kyra a lot of props for that. You know, mindset is a big deal. She just, she was under. I mean, she'll probably. I don't know this for sure, but they just made the move to Tennessee. Just dealing with the stress with that, dealing with the new gym, a new environment. Just a lot of things, and probably not training regularly like she wanted to because of the move and other factors. And it's so easy to start off with pretty much last place, especially that second one where she was pretty much out there, and that sled just didn't move for her. And for her to come back and kind of, it just showed a lot of resiliency, and that's something that she can definitely take away. I know Kiefer really worked with that. Obviously, the proven camp, they're going to make her. I mean, she's been training with Sydney. Sydney likes to run. So you know, uh, I'm not saying she's going to become a world class runner, but again, the intensity or how she does it, the approach, and this is also good for her because this was the bucket list item for her, was to compete individual at Wodapalooza, and she did that, and maybe not the results she wanted, but still, I think that her to come back from that day one, especially those first two events, it says a lot about her, and I'm really interested because she's one of those athletes who's probably looking at doing both the games and the WFP season. So, and someone brought
Yeah.
this up earlier. Here it is, CJ. All this makes the challenger element of WFP potentially so exciting. 100%. You're going to see some people. You're going to see someone like maybe I'm not. Kyra is pretty well known, but you're going to probably see an athlete like an Asherton or like what you said. What's her name?
Caitlin Bernard.
Yeah, or Caitlin and Bert. Yeah, you're going to see one of those athletes who might someone like that caliber that
Nina
you don't.
Nina Vragovic,
You're
right?
going to see one of them take a pro card. You're going to see an athlete like that take a pro card. You will, because you see that in the games whenever you see a rookie in a regional or semifinal make it over a veteran. So you're going to see that here, but now it's just a little bit more on the line, a little bit more at stakes because you're just not going for a spot. You're going for a contract, a whole year guaranteed contract. So I like that kind of setup. Makes it more competitive. Wow, we talked a lot about individuals. Um, um,
How are you
yeah,
doing? Do you need to
I'm
go to
doing
sleep?
fine. I'm doing fine. I mean,
I want to roll on to the teams.
let's roll on then. Let's do it. Let me get it then. Uh, share this tab. Teams it is. All right, we'll start with the women on the team rankings.
Okay. Women, scroll to the right real quick, just so we can see kind of the general overview here of how things shook out.
Oh,
A lot of, is very similar to the individuals. 5 accurate, 5 exactly right, which is kind of, again, those lower ones I think are a little bit random. 5 I was 1 off on, 5 I was 2 off on, 5 3 off on, 5 I was 4 or 5 off on. There was a group of 9 that I was within 6 to 10 on, and then Broadway girls and All American girls underperformed by at least 10. Noosa, Astrid Tin's team, Ada, another team from Scandinavia, and Chimera MX out of Mexico, all overperform. So, maybe we'll get to some of these teams here. But go back to the left there and up at the top, Yeti girls, Yeti
I was
outcasts.
I said it in our previous show. I didn't think they. I think I maybe top maybe fifth. I have to go with, but I'm surprised they won for me personally, and that's awesome. Good for them. I really is because when you get three athletes who are individual athletes who have nothing, they have no relation whatsoever. I mean, outside of maybe being sponsored by Yeti, but they don't fall in the same circles. They don't train together. None of that. Uh, I'm impressed. Well, that's props to props to DB, Shelby, and Emma. I mean, they made it work. I mean, those are the three athletes that,
I actually got to talk to all three of them.
yeah.
Danielle did not believe me. And Cooper's like, "What's wrong with you? I sent you the prediction." She's like, "That was for the guys." He's like, "You just didn't scroll to the right. The girls were in there. He picked you first." She looked at it. She's like, "Damn, why the hell did you pick us first?"
Mhm. Yeah.
And Emma and Shelby had both seen that, and they kind of thought the same thing. But I don't know. I just like they're good. Emma and Danielle are really good, and I think Shelby's underrated. And I just kind of went out
Mhm.
on a limb here, and I mean, dude, that final, and I know that we talked about on the broadcast that we didn't have the results because it was wild. The
Yeah.
last two events on the women's side caused huge turmoil in terms of the leaderboard. There were appeals that were impacting things. There were execution errors that were making a difference. You saw teams that dominated half of the workout faded at the end. Others that made a huge push on that lunge. Teams from other heats that were factoring in. It wasn't just the depth on the individual women's field, but in the team's field overall. That was like exceptional. This was one of the more tightly packed, exciting. Relight Salt Bays came into the final with the lead, and I couldn't remember talking about them a single time on the broadcast in the first five events. Not
No.
because and not because they weren't winning anything. They were
Mhm.
just consistently good. And it's only six events. There's 40 awesome teams in the field. Like the thing that, as exciting as it was, the thing that frustrates me about this competition is that it's hard to give everyone the credit that they're due. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, they did win an event, but it was the 3-3-3-4 intervals that nobody
Yeah.
finished. And so it wasn't easy to even recognize and celebrate that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And plus, also is one of those events where it wasn't really so much teamwork involved. It was, you had basically three different implements that each one of them can, you know, compete. They each individually did, or you could just put your specialist or someone else on there. Like, in that case, I think Emily Rolfe did all the running, you know, on the runner, and I think Ariel or Abigail did the rowing, and Ariel did the double unders or that, but no,
Well, that
I
was actually was one of the things that I did factor in. It wasn't a random pick, is that the programming allowed for you to lean on specialization.
yeah.
And but you also had to have teamwork and chemistry, as we
Mhm.
saw with the worm stuff.
And I saw that, and that's what surprised me. I was lucky enough to be on the floor and hear the communication, and that's what I'll give 100% credit to. The Yeti Outcasts, they communicated, and like they all talked. Like I think that's the most I've ever heard Shelby Neal speak. But they all communicated back, and it was good crosstalk. Even the nonverbal communication, they're just in sync. It was really cool to watch, and I think in one of the interviews they had, I think Bella asked him why did this work, and I think DB said it just happened. It just clicked. They didn't really get much practice with each other. They just went out. They had a single goal in mind, and they accomplished it. So you know, great job. I mean, I think DB has the most maybe team experience amongst them, and I would probably consider her maybe the more vocal and probably the captain of this team. And if that's the case, then she did a great job. So hats off to DB for that. I mean, great job, and it's just not being a leader, but also being a follower. And I think all of them showed those that. So great job.
Uh, Antunes in the comments here is talking about the Relight Salt Based team. Worst events were with the Worm, which is what you would expect when there's three
Mhm.
individual athletes, and you do have the programming that allows for you to express capacity with specific things like
Yeah.
overhead squats for reps, just splitting up a running and double under rowing event. No minimum work requirement on rope climb or power cleans, and they were really able to flex some of their individual skills in those. Plus, one of the things that I also considered in these picks was Emma, Shelby, and Danielle had not done the individual competition. All three of the women on the salt-based team did, so they're coming in depleted to that, in that regard. So, they end up, what they end up finishing? Fourth, and they were like, they were leading going into the final event, leading going into the final movement of the final event, really faded hard on that worm. But overall, we look at, especially someone like Ariel, who didn't have great individual performance, to like just ride it out, do a great job with the team, have a top 4 finish. So I would say, yeah, Antun, being proud of him makes sense. And I think anyone who's a fan of that team would feel the same way.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. They just wanted to have fun. All three of those girls are familiar with her. All three of them were on the Fit Fest team that competed. So I think they just get along with each other. I think at the end of the day, especially after all of them doing so well outside of Ariel, Emily and Abigail having top 10 finish individual, it was those. I think the goal was to have fun, and I think they did that.
Definitely the standout team was Team Noosa. I think it was what they ended up being called. I had them finishing 16th. They finished second overall. This was Astrid's team that we talked about, and Frederik Mollerup and Mia Furu. I think, if I'm doing the math correct, that they have 13 combined regional or semifinal team appearances out of Denmark, and Mia has been to the game. No, Astrid's been to the games twice. Mia's been to the games twice, and I don't think Frederica has. But we talked about it more on the men's side when I picked Team Sweden to do really well. And I was like, hey, don't sleep on these Scandinavian teams. Someone from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland. Like, there's a bunch of these teams coming over that are team athletes. This ended up being the best of them, and kind of the antithesis of what Antun is talking about there. And you really got to see it in the final. Second place on both of the worm events, a win on race to the top with the rope climbs and the cleans, 2/10 and a 15th on the overhead squat workout for.
That was a fun race to watch too. That between them and Swedish House Mafia. Oh, that was a fun. It came down to basically a no rep by a failed clean by Emily Lundberg, who just elected to do all the final 10 herself, and I think the 7th one she couldn't get, and basically they had a 2-rep lead. Fanny had a 2-rep lead, and they were switching out athletes. Emily picked it up, went touch and go while they're changing, actually pulled ahead, and then she failed that rep, and then but it was a great race. It's still close to the finish line.
So, that's Yeti Outcast, Team Noosa 1-2, Swedish House Mafia. I think, what did I pick up? Second or third? Picked them third. They finished. Picked them fourth. They finished third. Right there in the mix. This was the team with Lena, Emily Lundberg, Emma Tall. We kind of missed it on one of the events. They had won an event on the sand by like a 1/10 or 2/10 of a second over another event. We interviewed the other one. We did get to talk to him at the end when we were trying to find the results. Trying to buy a little time to get you guys the results on the broadcast. Didn't end up happening, but at least got to hear from them. And I wish we could do interviews after every event. I want to go to a competition that schedules an extra minute or two between heats so that we can talk to at least one individual or team athlete every time. Wodapalooza is probably not that event because they have to get 2,000 athletes through. But, I look at Rogue, I look at Dubai, I think we did do a lot of interviews in Dubai, actually, because they have a little bit more freedom there. I look at to WFP. Like, if you're going to have 30 athletes, if there's heats of 10, schedule it in there so that we can hear from more of the athletes. It's, even on Sunday night, by the time we got to the restaurant, there had been over 1 million views across all of the streams that we produced worldwide. We told you there's at least 60 countries. There are about 60 countries represented there. How many people in Sweden, in Denmark, in Norway, in Finland, in Italy, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, Australia, New Zealand are watching these athletes that have made these massive trips across the world to come to these competitions? And you don't think, I don't care if there's 10 people in the stands, there's 1 million watching at home, or 1,000, 10,000, whatever. And for 5, 10, 50 people, 100 people from their gym, their box, their community that are watching, like, How cool is that to get your athlete on the screen and a chance, even if it's just to answer one question?
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
something that, as someone who is hopeful to get more opportunities to be involved with broadcasts, that I want to push for, is to create, like, build it into the run of shows, build it into the transitions between heats and divisions, to hear from more of the athletes. Even on reps ahead, people have asked me, why don't you interview the losers? And it's like, well, when we just do reps ahead and there's nothing else, we could definitely do that because we
Yeah.
have more time to play with. But trying to integrate it with a 4-day full production Wodapalooza type thing, time is at a premium, and sometimes that's what gets, that's the cost of it. But I was glad we got to talk to them in the end, because not only are they 3 incredible athletes, they're 3 incredible people. And I'm, it's like splitting straws. Like, I'd love to see all the athletes podium all the time, but I was happy that they ended up kind of getting that at the end. It was so close, dude. 504, 498, 495, 489 for the top 4 teams. When it's that close, it's like always you feel just gutted for the team that finishes 4th. But we talk about it all the time. There's only 3 spots on the podium. There's only one winner.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think we kind of said this during it, that we're going to see a team from from Scandinavia and contending for a podium, and here we had 2. We also mentioned, kind of skipping ahead, it's like I was really high on Team XND with Emily Rethel, Hannah Black, Elizabeth Wishart. I thought they were definitely going to be a top 10 team just based off their team experience and their familiarity with each other. And they finished 7th. And then there was another team that I wanted to talk about. Oh, the Trace Leches team with Amy Kringle, Annika Greer, Jesse Smith. Jesse bringing that team experience over, but all 3 of them are really, they talked about it when they interviewed, that they all met each other through competition, through international competition, and they built this like really cool friendship. I mean, Jesse and Annika are separated, from East West Coast, and then Amy's across the Atlantic, but they still make a point of just talking and hanging out. So really impressed by them with a 5th place finish. I mean, they have different skill sets, but they look really good out there.
Another thing, the reason we're showing this graphic instead of the actual leaderboard is because you can actually see the names of the athletes next to the teams. I love this. I want to see a leaderboard built for, if there's going to be team competitions like this, where I can have an option that shows place, team name, because the team names matter. A lot of them are sponsored, and shout out to the sponsors, by the way, from all over the world that are funding some of these trips and opportunities for these athletes. And then tell me who the athletes are. Another thing that I really want to do on broadcasts, and we tried to do it in the run up to this one, there just wasn't. I need to learn more about it. I want to, when we're showing a team on the screen, to just be able to click a button and show their team plus their team name. But when you're trying to input graphics for hundreds, I like that Halpin put their teams on his posts. We did the same thing in our preview articles. Yeah, this is great. Halpin and I are very, very much on the same page about trying to maximize exposure for athletes around the world. He did the poll that he did at semifinals this year was like next level stuff. But yeah, Halpin's a great ambassador for the athletes for sure. But so that when a team pops up there, that it's easy. And again, I need to learn about it because it's a huge thing to store, and you don't necessarily know how often you'll use it. So it's a big, there's 45 teams of women, 40 teams of men, 40 individual women, 40 individual men, 14 LATAM men, 14 LATAM women. So to prepare a graphic for every one of those 250 things, and 85 of them have, or 80 of them have 3 names each, but I want to get to the point where we can do that, because the same way as having an interview and having your person or your team have an opportunity to speak, or like the Diamatize Athlete to Watch things that we did, there's always different sponsors for those, but we get your team's name and athletes' names on the screen to be able to do that in real time when we're showing a ping pong wall pulse, or we're showing a lunge, and can it pop up and show who those, those are the next levels that I'm hoping to be able to help push towards as the thing continues to evolve.
No, sorry, you got me right when I put a little freaking Sour Patch in my mouth. Lucy Campbell doing double duty, British Frogs, and Jennifer Mira as well doing double duty, finishing 8th. I was really impressed by that, especially as much as we saw Lucy kind of just throw it out there. I was really impressed by their performance as a team. There's another team. Who was it that really got? Oh, the for a while there, they were your leaders for a while there. Was the Little McDaughter coming in hotter? That was a Reese Littlewood, Lucy McGonigal, Bergeros, Bjorn's daughter. Average age of 18 years old. They finished 12th, but at one point they were like first, second. They're up there.
Oh yeah. Second and seventh on the first two events. They had a fifth on the warms up hand down workout, and they faded a little bit down to 12th. But again, similarly to Lucy McGonigal on the individual side of things, at that age to be competitive against this depth of field, and they're not team athletes, they're teenage athletes, and they're competing against some of the best individuals in the world, some of the best team athletes in the world, especially the international ones. I mean, just look right ahead of them by what? 4 points. Team Propud that has Salmason Hellman, Maria Langfors, and Antonia Falcotolensi. They podiumed last year.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about how deep this field is? Second place last year, 11th place this year. Come on, like what? And like in this group, I feel like you've mentioned most of them. We talked about Froggy Girls who don't run a little bit. 6th place, another great finish for Spiegel, British Frog Swag. Team Krieger, I had them doing slightly better than this, I think. But again, 3 team athletes coming out here showing that they can hang. Reebok Crew right below them, 3 individual athletes, Fuliano, Kishman, Fisagafi. Fuliano and Kishman did the double pull also. And then, team from Mexico, the Mayhem team, another team from Denmark, Team Ada, who we mentioned, the team from Switzerland, who we know really well, the Daughters. They finished 17th. A lot of people had picked them to win. I think I picked them 10th. Who the heck knew how they were going to do? It was just cool that they were there.
Yeah, and I think that wasn't lost on them. They were coming there just to have fun, to do something that they no one ever thought that would happen, and they wanted to do it. They're all 3 of them collectively are great ambassadors of the sport of health and wellness and fitness. They're great ambassadors. I mean, they put Iceland on the map when it comes to fitness. We may never see this ever again. And so it wasn't about winning for them. It was about for them just getting out there and just, bucket list item.
And you know what they still definitely have on the fitness side? Squatting.
Yes.
Their top 10 finishes came on overhead squad and the 3-3-3-4s. The buy-in with the monostructural is good for them, and the thrusters and snatches with the dumbbell and the overhead squats. Like they still got some fitness up their sleeve, but this to me was not something where it was like, oh, they sucked, they finished 17th. It was like, no, it could care less. It was incredible that they pulled together and did this.
They're all at different they're all different points in their careers, season, and life right now.
And the Buttery Bros crew was following them around. I think they had Katrin mic'd up for a couple. I saw them interviewing some of them for long periods of time. So I'm expecting there to be, if it's not out already, they're so quick at turning things around. I'm expecting there to be something really cool about that team's experience at TYR Wodapalooza this year coming out. Yeah,
definitely. And then kind of conversely, I was able to talk to Reese, Lucy, and Burgos after that, the final event, which was, they obviously struggled with the worm. What they ended up finishing overall in that final event.
Who?
Little McDaughter coming in hotter.
32nd.
Yeah, they struggled with the worm, and as expected, they're just collectively great athletes. But I talked to them afterwards, and I'm like, is this a team we're going to see for kind of like what we'll talk about a little bit later on with the boys? Is they're all they pretty much grew up through team competitions with each other, and they become such great friends. I mean, look at it. You have an American, you have an Irish woman, and then someone from Ireland. They've become really good friends. So to know where, I mean, these fitness is making them just. Fitness is what's bringing them together. So it's just really cool. And I can definitely see this team just sticking around for a couple of years, kind of like the boys, and building their legacy at Wodapalooza by just having fun and putting a team out there.
Thank you, Nadine, for hanging out. Monster Game qualifier starts tomorrow. Hope you guys keep it on your radar. I've reached out to Jason again this year. Obviously, he's got a big pull with WFP as well. But yeah, Monster Games is one there's a bunch of competitions going on in July in North America. we're interested in covering them, of course. So if you guys have some pull with monster games, help us out. Let them know that we want to be there.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll get to this in a minute, Melanie.
Hmm.
Let me just look at the women real quick and see if there's anyone else I want to give the shout out to. We talked about Ada. Chimera MX had a good for I picked them last. They finished 29th. Don't know too much about them still, but I'd say like, hey, that was a great performance for them. Yeah, so let's flip over to the men.
Men it is.
Nothing exactly right in the top 8, but all of them very close. Like I pretty much had all the top 8 teams in the top 8. It just was a different kind of scrambling. I don't think there's here we can see the kind of the breakdown. So I got 3 teams exactly right. I was pretty happy with that 11-24 pick actually.
Yeah. I would be
that
too.
Was good. Tonka Camaraderie was Nick Matthew, Alex Atulis, Brandon Shipper. I thought that was a good one. 1 minute, man. That's Mesa's team. Remember, she gave me all that shit for picking them 34th. They finished exactly 34th.
Like, what the hell? Mesa.
But yeah, 4 of them I was within 1. 1 of them within 2, 3 within 5, 4 within 5, 5 within 4. 4 within 5 or something like that. So 19 teams pretty close on, 6 teams a little bit off, and 11 teams I was way off on. Shout out to Beefcakes, Overskag, We Step on Legos, Team Complex, and Krypton for proving me wrong.
Told you about Krypton.
4 teams, exactly 10 spots better than I expected. Now, these were all kind of in the bottom half of the leaderboard, and I would say like this is where that depth of men's field really comes into play that I talked about on the individual side. I'm not that surprised that there were this many teams that I was kind of off on, especially because like there were some kind of wild variables, like Mafa team, for example. I don't even think I listed them here because 2 other guys pulled out within the day before the competition. Adam McAdams on the WOD 9 team was literally leaving the Echo Bike to puke off the side of the competition floor. He was sick all weekend long. So sometimes there's just like this little stuff. I do want to give a shout out to one team, the Carolina Dogs, Robert Yates, Hunter Osmond, and Frank Minervini. Hunter is like usually like I hope he doesn't get offended by this because their teams are generally really good. But he's kind of like B team grit house team athlete. Like when they have 2 teams that crash crescendo, he's on the second team. He's got some team experience. Robert Yates and Frank Minervini, I view them more as like low level elite or pro individual athletes. So I put them in the middle of the pack because I know these guys know how to compete. But they finished 14th in this division. I talked to Frank after the fact, and I was impressed with them. So shout out to the Carolina Dogs.
Well, let's head back to the top. The boys, they made it fun. They made it exciting. I mean, yeah.
Don't they always do that? These guys are freaking incredible, man.
Mm-hmm. That race between. So when I was on that floor, when they're coming off the turn with them and Tres Leches, they both elected to do they didn't drop their bag. They did the quick flip transition where they throw the bag up, they switch opposite shoulder all in one move. That's hard to do with 3 guys, and especially with an unbalanced worm. But both of them did that. And then as I'm walking down, I was trying to get them both in the frame. I thought to myself, if one of these teams is going to get a no rep, who's it going to be? And right when I thought that, Mayo Tres Leches got the no rep. And it was, and it was one of those calls. It was the right call. I think they stepped on the line or over the line, so they had to drop the bag. But I talked to Jorge afterwards. He's like, I was hoping they wouldn't call it, but they did. And, But
dude, Jorge is just the freaking man. Like he keeps.
I told you. I talked to him afterwards. He came up. He's like, "Hey, Pat. Hey, thanks for the love." It's like people sometimes don't understand that. And I'm like, dude, if you, that guy, he was the leader on that, and it showed in those guys. It showed, and they had fun. They had a lot of fun, and I think all the guys had fun. I mean, those, Vellner, Adler, Hopper, they look like they're having a blast. Justin, Dallin, and Willie. I mean, someone mentioned earlier in the comments about they did like a debrief on Justin's YouTube channel with those with like I think Dallin, Hopper, Adler, and Vellner. So I'm looking forward to watching that. They said it was funny, but
Yes,
Yeah.
a few people have sent that my way. No, but dude, I mean, look, Travis and Noah had won this thing back in 2018. Will Morad was on their team then. Obviously, Will's going to have different looking season this year, heading up the helm for WFP. All three of these guys got the invite there. They won this thing 2022, which was, I think, the first year they all competed together. They got third the year after that. They split up last year, back together, win it again. Tough competition to win, even harder to win it twice. 3 times on the podium with these guys. Mesa said they were washed up. Some other people said they were washed up. They're not. I mean,
Travis.
maybe they don't have top 10 games
Yes.
potential or WFP potential. I don't know. But
Travis took that. He took offense to that. He had receipts. I remember afterward,
yeah.
he goes, I brought him in for an interview. He goes, yeah, I'm just surprised he didn't name names, but yeah.
No, and look, I picked them fourth. Noah sent me a message today. Picked me fourth. Proved you wrong, sucker. Like classic Noah. And I made sure to clarify that I had picked them fourth. You guys both picked them the podium. I don't think anyone was picking them to win. I don't know if anyone picked them to win, but like from the start, these guys just looked like it was 2018 again. They looked incredible. I'm impressed.
Right from the start, that first event. I mean, when Noah came out and started doing all those overhead squats, I was like, well, this is going to be fun, because what it reminded me was Noah in 2018 with what was it, the one he burnt out on? Was that 3-3?
Whoa, Melanie picked him in Heat 1. I'm sure there were people that picked him in Heat 1. Nice job, Melanie.
But
yeah, this is going to be a long one, but that's okay. It's worth it. It was Wodapalooza.
Noah looked good. I mean, Noah looked good. Travis, Chandler. I mean, they all knew they all knew the spot. And I think when it came to the worm, those guys are so familiar with the worm. I mean, obviously Chandler came in a week before. Travis came down not too long shortly. They came here to win. I mean, $30,000. That's kind of, with this level of athletes, kind of maybe chump change. 10,000 a piece, but. I don't think it was about the money. It was more about just proving people wrong. And I think they did that. And, just great job. They look great. And they made it fun. That last race, what can you say? That's what you want. You wanted
the final. Race. I was conflicted about the final, because the first 225 reps were in the rig. It was just like this, people say it's a slow
hard to watch,
finish, but it's like, but the final movement of the final event, the lunge, was epic.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree. I mean, it was hard to, it was proper teamwork. And,
shout out to the boys. Incredible, historic legends of Wodapalooza, continuing to extend their legacies there. All of them will be competing WFP this year at the very least. I'm excited for that. While I did talk about like the global representation, I also don't mind having some older with some younger. These guys have, if anything, this was like an affirmation to those people that selected them. They're like, yeah, these guys still got it. They're still fit. They're still amongst the best. It's not an accident that they won this competition.
Yeah.
Another thing that's not an accident is that Saxon Panchik and Jorge Fernandez finished second again. And I mentioned it on the individual side. I was kind of holding my tongue a little bit. We said in the preview show, I picked them fourth. I'll admit it. Replacing Roman with Guy that should be a step backwards. It wasn't a step backwards.
Nope.
I mean, dude, and like you talk about Jorge and his leadership on a team and his understanding of how to get the most out of his teammates and how to like pick up the slack when he needs to here and there. But I even think about Saxon, like as good as
for a while. Yeah,
as good as Saxon has been as an individual. He competed on a team with his brothers in 2016. They took 7th. He competed the next year. They took 3rd. He's got a 2 consecutive second places now. Saxon's not a team athlete, except he is. He's really, really good in the team environment.
Yes. I think a lot of it has to be with people he's comfortable with. And he's obviously comfortable around Jorge and Guy. I mean, he is a mayhem athlete. He makes, I think, at least 2 or 3 times. I did say, I think during the broadcast, I did say like, oh, Saxon fly, he's driving over and he's doing the worm. That was me assuming he was doing that. They actually did. They actually Corey did tell me they had planned to do that. Like everything I said, he's like, you're spot on about everything except for Saxon never did make it over. And by the way, I didn't talk to Jorge about this. It's just my own assumption. He's like, the only thing that didn't happen was Saxon coming over and practicing with the worm because that was when Nashville had that snow and ice storm right beforehand. And so that was the only thing. Otherwise, they planned a couple training sessions with the worm, like I said, because Mayhem has a worm, a 3-person worm they can practice on. So, but I think that's again a tribute to Saxon, his experience on a team of 3, and Jorge's experience as a team athlete and putting people in the right places to succeed. So they made it fun. They made it fun. They made it fun. They made it great. I mean, yeah, it's just a great race at the end of the day.
Guy gets a lot of critics for nothing. I don't watch a lot of their shows, but T-Bird says John Young is the one who gives him crap a lot. Guy is amazing, dude. The guy's got, I mean, he's not a top 3 guy in the world, but his resume is starting to become more and more impressive as he carries on.
Yeah.
And add another feather in his cap. This was this is to me is a great accomplishment for all 3 of these guys. And here's why. The 2 teams that they beat consist of, first of all, Team Go Wad. And Willie George is the first person on this team I'm going to talk about because he's now done the trifecta. Second place, first place, third place. He started on every step of the podium the last 3 years as a member of Team Go Wad. He did it with Crouch and Krennikov. He did it with Medeiros and Crouch. And now he's done it with Pepper and Medeiros. So he's the consistent guy. Obviously, Medeiros and Pepper's credentials as individuals are better, and Dallin is right now ranked as one of the top 5 guys in the world. And Guy and Saxon and Jorge are not.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat this team. Go Wad, great fight. I don't know if they were in a podium position at all. They were like bouncing in and out of the podium. Well, they must have been second. So they were at the top. Fourth, first. Seventh, they probably slipped out of it. Third, they bounced back on it. It was very tight. When you look at the podium, they ended up getting 9 points ahead of the PJs. The PJs consist of 3 of if you take Brent out of the equation, it's 3 of the top 4 ranked guys in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we look at those other teams that have athletes like these teams win.
Yeah.
Top athletes in the world competing individual in the last couple of years: Pat, Brent, and Jeff, Laura, Gabby, and Jamie, Noah, Travis, and Chandler. They win competitions. These guys finished 4th. So for the boys and Tres Leches, the washed up boys and the non-talented Tres Leches that people like to call them, no, you got to rethink that. You can't be just sticking to the label of these guys that used to be or that feels right. When we came into this, and I'm not going to say I didn't. I picked PJs and Go Wad to win. I would have picked them again. But those guys were not like afterthoughts. They were just, to me, slightly behind. And in the case of competition, they were slightly ahead. So excellent. And I felt like those 4 teams were in a class of their own. I think those were, I had picked Team Sweden up there. So I had kind of thrown them in the mix as a potential wild card. They didn't live up to that billing. But the other 4 teams I had in the top 5, and they proved to be the class of the field. It was similar on the women's side. Only 3 could stand on the podium. But despite the depth of the field, these were the 4 best teams.
Yeah. Let's talk about the 5th team.
Sculpted Scholars. Yeah.
Oh, it was fun to watch. They were fun to watch. Yeah.
Farlow is like, I'm starting to think this guy loves Wodapalooza. It's his only time in the team 4-way. Yeah, it's the only time he's gone in the team 4-way. He finishes 5th. He now is a 5th and 8th as an individual. So it's not like a ton of data points, but they're all good data points. I'm curious to see where he'll compete this year. If he wants to do WFP, he'll have to earn it. Yeah. If he does the game season, I mean, I have to think that he'll do better than he did last year because there'll be people who beat him missing for sure, and others that beat him last year that I think he'll beat this year. I don't know. I feel like when I'm assessing Farlow that last year's semifinals is something that I'm going to forget pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that was just it was more of a, like I said, it's just something that just happened. That's not a true indication of who he is as an athlete. We've seen that. I think I don't know what it is. What I hope is that him, Emma, and Erica Folo find the right place for them. I don't know. As far as I know, I don't think Josh is programming for them anymore or helping them out. I don't know. I know for sure that Folo doesn't have Mammoth or Josh programming for him. I think he was doing all that leading up to it, and then she was gonna have to find something else. So if that's the case for him and Emma, I hope they find the right fit. I know there's a ton of coaches out there and programs that would love to have either one of them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Sixth place was the training culture team. And I was really kind of happy with how this worked out. The training culture team in and of itself was an international team. 3 games athletes from 3 different countries, Michal Wazalowski from Poland, Callum Clements from Spain, Peter Ellis from Australia. They finished 6th, 7th, or 8th on every event.
Yeah.
It's just like crazy. So this is what I was talking about with Yonakoski. Like, you didn't hear about them the whole weekend because they had no wins, they had no top 3s, but they had no bad performances. And they're all really good. And it also kicks off this section of the leaderboard that I just love. So they have, you can't even put one flag there, but right behind them, Invictus Miami, which is the Mexican guys.
Yep.
By the way, I want to give a shout out to Roldan Goldbaum
Oh
because
God, what a
he won the
beast!
LATAM Cup. He looked incredible. We should also give a shout out to Mariana Meza. She's from Mexico as well. 2-time
Her team did
LATAM
well.
champion now. Her team was, I think they were the next team that we didn't talk about. Like, they finished
Yeah.
12th or 13th. Amazing performance for them. Just random circumstances. I actually got a chance to interview each of them in Spanish. I hope that was not offensive to anyone. I hope there was just an opportunity for them to speak in their language to their fans in Mexico and throughout Latin America. The LATAM Cup is an incredibly cool thing that TYR Wodapalooza has put on the last 2 years. And then to also see them both have good performances on the team side of things. Carlos Labarte and Philip Muscarella, who is not Mexican, but fits in beautifully with this team. That was a really fun team to watch. Behind them, you had Team Sweden. Then you had the Krieger boys. Then you had Smart Wad that has Luca Moritz and Harry Lightfoot on it. And so 6 through 10, collectively, one American male, Philip Muscarella.
Yeah.
And from like 12 different countries or something like that. I just love that. Like, you guys, everyone who watches our stuff knows how big of a fan of international fitness, the global fitness is. And to see a huge host of teams. Yes, most of the top guys were from North America, but to see a huge host of international teams from all over Europe, Latin America, South America, if you're including Guy, have an impact on a team competition at a global fitness festival that TYR Wodapalooza is, made me really happy.
Yeah, you brought it up. I was so impressed with Roldan. For him, I mean, the LATAM Cup, they did the same workouts as the elites did, which was grueling. But then he came back and he didn't seem like he was complaining at all. He had a good time. And for them to finish, I knew they were going to do well. I didn't anticipate 7th. I did think they'd do better than 13th. I was thinking 10th, just based off of their pedigree, as especially how Phil and Roldan know each other so well from the games, being on a team, on the Invictus team, the other Invictus team, were they Unconquerable? I forgot which one they were, but they did. Yeah, he did awesome. And it's cool. It was really fun watching the LATAM Cup. Now that you talk about it, and I was giving Geese some crap about it because when we did the medal stand, Roldan, there were some guys who was missing. I think Roldan was one of them. So Guy was kind of joking around. He's like, "Hey, I'll jump up there and beat him." And I'm like, "How about next year you do both individual and LATAM?" He's like, "Oh, has anyone ever done that before?" I'm like, "No." So he would be doing both workouts twice. So I don't know. I don't think he's definitely not doing it, but that'd just be kind of cool. But it just shows you how I mean how it's grown, the sport has, and you talk about one American in that field. It just shows you again that Miami people are converging and coming all around the world for Wodapalooza to compete here because it's fun. and it is a festival, and it is so much fun. I mean, if you've never been there, I know Nadine's been there quite a few times, but if you haven't been there yet, it's definitely something to think about going to, even though they've changed the dates. So it'll be, March 12th through the 15th next year in 2026.
Yeah, big announcement. The mayor of Miami Beach made that announcement live on the competition floor Sunday before the finals, I believe, and immediately was up on social media as well. It's a big change. They've always been in January, pushing it back a couple months. Um, I've heard that it has something to do with Miami Beach wanting to have more a different feel during the spring break
Yes.
time of the year, a little bit more maybe of a healthier party scene than what maybe they're used to. I know there's been a lot of speculation about integrating with the game season and the potential for that. I have no idea about that.
I don't
Um,
see that happening.
but what I like, this is very much in line with what they did with SoCal. They made the announcement for SoCal 14 months before it happened. They're making an announcement for a big change to their season 14 months before it happens. It's something that we never really see from the CrossFit Games, but it is something that TYR Wodapalooza Loud and Live have now made a point of doing, is when they're doing something that's different, they stake their claim more than a year ahead of time.
Yeah.
I think it is should not be lost on people who are consuming content coming out of there this weekend, how critical that is, because we
Yes.
saw all the people already in our comment section here and in other comment sections around that are interested in going back or going to because of what it was here. I heard Miami wants to
Yes.
create a month of health in March and also doing Hyrox the same time. This
So,
is the way to do it.
yeah.
Make the statements early enough so that people can schedule their lives, especially if you're moving to summer or September, that's a busy competition season, or spring break, or in December, like WFP did, that's pushing on winter break. Like, get those things out early so that people can plan to be a part of them if they want to be a part of them.
So this shows you just how connected Loud and Live is to the community, to Miami. Is like, they had the mayor when they did that. They had the actual mayor of Miami come out and do the announcement with the commission that came up. And remember, I believe the president of the commission is actually a 12-year CrossFitter, has competed at Wodapalooza. I think one year he might have won the gauntlet, but so there are people there that are friends of this. But like you said, the first plan is the first week is going to be High Rocks, and then following 15-year. Yeah. 15
Let's
year.
go.
Yeah, I only competed this year in the golf. That's what it was. But
That's awesome.
I got one of the three things I said right about him. But it's just so cool to see. And then after Wodapalooza, I think is the Miami Marathon. So again, like you said, that spring break area, Miami Beach is a great place. But there are sometimes there's spring break when a lot of people come there visiting, and they don't really have regard to the community that's there in Miami South Beach. Fitness people do. He won the South Florida government. Oops, sorry. See, so that's the type of stuff you're getting. I mean, when you have partnerships with people, you find the people that you relate to, and this guy, it's beautiful to see. And as for integration with the games or whatever, I have my different opinions of that. But I think what it is, like, one thing we always complain about with the games, like, we don't know until like what the game season looks like, and what it almost does is puts all these organizations, almost puts them in hostage. That like they're held hostage by it. So by Loud and Live going, you know what, we're staking our claim here. This is it. If the games want to be part of it, this is our date. We're gonna do it.
Maybe we'll escape the
Yes.
worst weekend of the year as well. I think
Yeah.
it's awesome when they announced SoCal. I was like, "Ooh, September's ambitious," but they've announced it 14 months ahead of time. And I think someone had put up here something about how it would impact being during the time of the games season, open qualifiers, whatever. I don't think that they're concerned about that. I think that they're making a decision that they feel is in the best interest of their community, the best interest of Miami Beach that they're working with there. They're making an announcement far enough ahead of time that if other people are concerned about it, they can pivot. And if they're not happy about it, then it's like, you should get more ahead of it. And Krithika agrees with what you said. That's because CrossFit needs to pick a season layout and stick to it. Anything, just pick something. We've been asking for that for 6 years.
Yeah.
And It doesn't seem like that's how it's going to be. And I
Loud
think
and
that
live, loud and live. When it came to TYR Wodapalooza, you always knew it was going to happen in January. All some of these other things. I mean, when it comes, even Rogue Invitational, it's like, hey, it's going to happen right around Halloween. But again, Rogue Invitational put out almost a year in advance. Well, almost what 10 months in advance when it was.
now maybe their hand was forced a little bit, but I still think that they were planning on announcing it pretty early.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, here
It's
this
out
is
there. It's out there.
book your hotel now. I mean, as soon as Spin put that out there, I went on there and started looking at those dates, did some investigation myself. I got a hotel room in a freaking Moxie, a block down, half mile away from the venue for $50 a day. Now I went on there, it's about almost $200 a day. So Miami Beach, the hotels are already expensive to begin with. Start booking now. Start looking and booking for that weekend. Loud and Live's helping. It's helping the community. But anyways, yeah. So good on them. I think it's awesome. I love the whole, who knows, those High Rocks athletes, a lot of them, that's been really popular. They might stick around and compete at freaking Loud and Live at TYR Wodapalooza as well. So you're going to get a lot of carryover from that, and it's going to be cool. I think it's good. And same with the marathon runners. Who knows? You might have some athletes stick around after Loud and Live, after TYR, and do freaking half marathon at Miami Marathon or something, or do the full marathon. I could definitely see Noah Olson doing that, as crazy as it is. They have all those run clubs that are going on now. But
can't put anything past him at this point.
yeah. And also look how great it is for sponsors. Think about it from an activation standpoint. If you're a CrossFit endemic brand and you're trying to get into High Rocks or marathon running, if you're someone like Rad who's very, taking the running shoe thing seriously, boom, you have 3 weeks of where you can, you're going to sell out of your stock. So if you're a sponsor or a potential partner or just a vendor or anything, you have so many opportunities here to just reach brands and reach people and connect with people that you normally wouldn't have, all in a 3-week period in Miami.
I think it's all positive. I think it's great.
Final thoughts on the men's rankings. We went on one of those tangents again. 11-24. I'm I'm a big fan of Tyler Cook. I like I said, if there was a podium for hypeness and guys having the most fun, 11-24, they'd be at the top of it. I love those guys. I got to really hang out with them at the after party. Just a fun group of dudes. Looking forward to seeing what they do this coming season. I think they have some exciting news coming out in terms of what their team will look like this year. And if it's what they lead me to believe, it's going to be fun to watch. Anything else that kind of stuck out to you?
No, I think that was pretty good on the team side. I mean, I don't know how everyone feels about it. I think it's a super fun format for a team competition. It's pretty well known in Wodapalooza history, and I think it was a huge success again this year. There's one other aspect of elite competition that happened in Miami that I want to talk about. Melanie asked, I missed it, Brian, but did you talk about how it felt doing reps ahead along with producing the broadcast? Well, first of all, let's just talk about reps ahead. It was Pro 6. We have four matches. The first one was Con Porter versus Riley Humbringhouse. This was to me was one of the coolest matches of the night, one of the coolest matches we've done, because you got an established 8-year games veteran against an unestablished TYR Wodapalooza RX podium athlete, 2-0 in reps ahead, but only done it against Malachi Bennett. This is a much bigger and different challenge for him. He said it himself. People are going to be watching for Con. They're not going to know who I am. The amount of pressure I'm feeling was different. Con got within a few EcoBike calories of winning. Riley pulled the pendulum on him and didn't knock him out, but went the distance, took the win. I thought it was a great start to the night. Any thoughts about, and then we talked to Con. Con said to me, I don't want to do anything but rep set. That was fucking awesome.
Yep. He was saying it all night. Poor Phil is like, I'm sure Phil loves it, but we almost saw the infamous double pendulum. Almost saw that. But and it was yeah. I mean that guy, I think I announced him as, he's the epitome of full send, and he went full send. Didn't work out to his advantage. I'm giving Riley the nickname the legend killer, or the legend the legend killer. he's 3-0 against 35-year-old plus athletes now. So, um, you know, but speaking of Riley, did that, finished third, again, repeated on the podium at RX at Wodapalooza, which is an amazing feat, by the way. Um, so
Yeah, he took third. Ty Jenkins, the three-time teenage champion, won it, and a guy who I looked really good. And a guy who I don't know, Jordan Chenier, took second.
Mhm,
Um, so but nice weekend for Riley. Good way to start reps ahead. Second
mhm.
match was two athletes who were not originally supposed to be in the lineup that ended up jumping in last minute. Both team athletes primarily, Jesse Smith and Lena Richter. I didn't necessarily know how this one would go, but I think it was the most lopsided match of the night. Jesse was just better at this combination of
Yeah.
movements.
Yeah, I talked to Lena afterwards. She's like, it was at the handstand walk. She knew she was going to get her ass beat in that, so she was like trying to make up as much as she can on the bike. But um, Jessie just, she had fun. She
You know
loved it.
what's crazy? You remember talking with Annika and Kyra after their match in SoCal? And
Yeah,
Kyra was like, when I saw Annika doing toes to bar, I knew I was screwed.
yeah,
And I think that like in this format, because dude, like think about it, in boxing, you have like separate dressing rooms and then you come out.
mhm,
In reps ahead, they're like warming up in the same, in this case, it was like this satellite warm up area. Like you're
yeah,
looking at your opponent. You're
doing
watching
them.
them do handstand walkers, sandbag cleans. Like you can do something in the warm up to play mind games with your opponent,
Yep,
whether it's something like a set, like Annika could have done those toes to bar just to send a message, even though she didn't actually have that, just to put some doubt in Kyra's mind. That wasn't the case, but she could do that. You could go to the sandbag and just do singles and put in your opponent's mind, oh, she's going to do singles. I'll do singles. And then you start doing touch and go, and suddenly you're 3 reps ahead and the other one's 3 reps behind. And now they're scrambling. Like there's so much gamesmanship. And I didn't even think about it until I started talking to the athletes after the fact that right there on the floor or just off the floor in the warm up area, you could be messing with your opponent.
yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, and that's the beauty of rep set, that you can do stuff like that. There, it's mental as well, and it got to Lena. So yeah, that was fun to watch. And then we got into the main card matches. First one, again, we had to reschedule. Emma Lawson, had to withdraw. She just didn't want to re-aggravate an injury that she might have had. So she was just being safe. But luckily, we found a pretty good replacement in Haley Adams. And yeah, Alex Kazan versus Haley Adams.
I think it speaks to the momentum that Rep Says has in general, that an athlete of the caliber, the notoriety, the success that Haley Adams would step in and do something like this in a 24-hour notice, basically.
Mhm.
But I just want to say that Haley, as an athlete, as a person, is like she's taking risks and putting herself out there. I mean, Alex is no joke. And
Yeah.
Alex has been preparing for this. And Alex had withdrawn from the team competition. This is the only competition she was doing. And
Mhm.
Haley, like she, like this confidence that we've seen in her reemergence into the sport, carried over into Reps Head, carried over into the national anthem performances. She's not a trained and best singer out there. She knows that there's people in the crowd that are probably better singers than her, but she believes in herself. She
Yeah.
knows that Alex Kazan is more prepared for this. She may not think that she's got a chance to win. I don't know, but she believes in herself. And win or lose, if her voice cracks or not, no matter how her team does or she does on the competition floor, at how old is she now? 23 or 4? Like she's
Mhm.
walking off the floor no matter what, proud of herself, proud of her effort, and content with who she is as a person. It makes me so happy to see, considering the things that we'd heard that she was going through 2 and 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to also do with the team that she's around. I was able to talk to Bijan, her agent, and one of her best friends, and he's like that. Just he's just she just wants to say yes to more things and have fun. And why not? Because she's played it safe here and there, but now not anymore. I think she's trying to take advantage of every situation. Like she didn't know anything about reps ahead. She just said, "Okay, I'll do it," and did it, and she said she had fun. She says she can't wait to do another one. I mean, Alex was the same way afterwards. I was like, "Man, when's the next one? When's the next one? I want to do it." It's like that's what every athlete has said once they do a rep set. Win or lose, they want to do another one. It's
Another
just
thing, another thing that she did this weekend that people may not have seen, If you missed it early in the show, we were having some problems on Thursday. We were technically, and that's just probably obvious to people who watched it. But we did record a pre-show with Bella, Haley Adams, and Fisa Gaffi. We couldn't get it up live, so we recorded it to have it for you guys, and we posted it on Loud and Live's YouTube channel the next day. It was a really great conversation between the three of them. Some on competition, some just about TYR Wodapalooza in general, and just about being a strong female athlete and all this other stuff. So check that out on the Loud and Live's YouTube if you haven't seen it yet as well. Very impressive with Haley's confidence the whole weekend. Really enjoyed all the matches. And Alex got the win. So, a 1-0 record for her in reps ahead, and I definitely hope that we'll see her again. I think she said so on the thing. I'd love to do another match. I had a blast out there, and that paved the way for the finale. PC, you were on the floor calling the match, Jason and Dallin. I mean, I think that if you just look at the totality of all reps ahead matches, this is probably the premier one that we've seen yet.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got the third and fourth finisher at the games. They're really good friends. They shared an Airbnb with each other all week. They're both brute athletes now. They've competed on teams together. Both at Wodapalooza and internationally at FitFest. I'm
just going to say this. I'm not convinced. I don't actually know where, if you just said, hey, a month from now, there's a competition and all of the top 50 men in the world are competing at it. I'm not 100% certain where I would rank James compared to Dallin compared to Jason. Mm-hmm. But if you're just looking at reps ahead, throw out any scenarios. Dallin had beaten James. Jason had beaten James. It was only right that these two guys had a chance to compete against each other. They both accepted the invitation. They both took on the challenge. And in the post-game interview, Jason said, dude, we're sharing an Airbnb. Our bedroom walls touch against each other. We didn't talk all day. This was a serious thing for these guys.
Yeah, it definitely was. It definitely was. And they were mind you, they were the first ones that signed up. They said, yes, we're going to do that. And we asked them who they want to face. And they each said each other, no offense to James. But this was kind of I don't know. It's like, this is what Dallin needed to do, or this is what Jason needed to do, especially after there was some question about the finish to his match with James. So I think it was just great. I keep on saying, I think it's great. Everything's great. Everyone love everybody, but it was just cool.
Look, Andrew and I talked about it during the broadcast. Jason came on afterwards, and we kind of threw the question to him a little bit. Jason's up there, man. He is. He's in the mix. He's a podium threat anywhere he goes. In a one-on-one format like this, anytime he shows up, he only got 23 or 4% of the votes by the fans against Dallin. He hasn't won the fan base over as a top 3 guy in the world, a podium finisher at Rogue, a guy who can beat Dallin in a one-on-one setting, but he can do that stuff. He is one of those guys. And it's I talked about it in the middle tier, but even at the top tier of the sport right now, I think Jeff made the right decision for himself. I still think Jeff is the guy to beat at any individual competition right now, but there's 4 guys, maybe 5. Roman's a total wild card right now to me. Ricky's a little bit can he beat Jeff? I don't know. We talked about it in the run up to this, that at Rogue, take out the back squatting and the vertical horizontal pegboard event, and he was only 10 or 20 points behind him. I think 10 points behind him on the other 7 events. But with Roman, Ricky, Dallin, James, Jason, Jeff, Vellner's still in the mix. At least those 6 guys. Hatfield climbing. Who knows if Medeiros will throw his name back into that echelon? It's just fucking awesome. This sport to me, the sport is at such a great spot. I just hope that we get to see those guys compete against each other regularly.
I think we will. And I think this is kind of the future between. I think WFP, they might be onto something here with just having the best and showcasing those guys and making them compete against each other. I mean, again, and I think, opportunities like reps ahead and, I've heard rumors. I didn't get a chance to talk to the organizer at FitFest, but they were there. But I could definitely see it. I heard a rumor that they might bring back 3 teams again next year, as opposed to where they'll have a Europe, a North America, and a world team, which makes complete sense. But yeah, it's just so many great opportunities out there to see some of the best competing against each other, and we're in a really good era in CrossFit functional fitness, the sport of fitness. We're in a really cool era. There's so many different storylines where we have different eras kind of converging on each other right now. Um, where we're seeing some young up and coming that future of sport combine, intersecting with veteran legends like Vellner, and it's cool because they all get along. Like Vellner like takes pride in kind of like you know kind of mentoring that younger batch of guys, and the same with the on the women's side. When you see a team like the Daughters competing alongside a team of 17-year-old, 18-year-old, then who look up to them, it's just really cool to see.
I will answer Melanie's question. How did I feel doing reps ahead along with producing? Reps ahead is like not that hard to produce compared to a competition. This was actually the most challenging one we've had to produce because there was a dynamic movement in the handstand walk. But usually it's pretty static and we can have a stationary camera. In this case, Nico was on the camera and we talked extensively about just keeping everything in frame and where he would move to not be in the way of monitors on the floor or judges or anything else. And so I didn't feel like I needed to do a lot on the producing side, which meant that I would be able to do the commentary with Andrew. That day was exhausting. I mean, we were up till 3 a.m. the night before. We were back there at like 5 or 6 in the morning. We barely slept. We produced streams all day long in the wind, in the rain, in the cold, on the beach, at the TYR Arena. Andrew came into the booth. We were a little bit delayed starting the matches. When I watched it back, it's the only thing I've watched back so far was the reps ahead. I was I don't know if I can say this humbly, but I was surprised at how I didn't sound tired. Like I sounded a little bit less energetic than some of the other ones, but I felt like I didn't have like as much of a my notes available about the athletes. So there were a couple things that I said that I didn't have exactly recollection of what place, for example, Riley Humringhouse finished on the podium at Wodapalooza the year before in the RX division, but I had said that he did. I didn't know exactly what place he finished at quarterfinals. I said he was like 20 spots out. I didn't even go to check what he was. So I would like to be a little bit more accurate on some of those things, but similar to what John said earlier and what Tyler was asking me about, like given the totality of the circumstances, I felt like I was able to do that and still do a service to reps and do a service to the athletes from the commentary side of things. There were aspects of the broadcast on the technical side that I'm on that day in general, which obviously bled over to reps ahead that I'm not happy with. Like they should have been better. But I don't feel like the commentary slipped because of the producing and reps ahead, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. Man, set a new record. Longest podcast that we've ever done. When's the next record?
Krithika, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Got some fun and exciting things coming up. Anything else in the queue? This is a good question. I think this might be better left for maybe another show at some point, but my opinion is no.
No, but there's like names
Yeah.
that are on the list that will be on the inaugural ballot when it happens. I kind of like the 25-year mark.
Yes, that's
That like
exactly
after, so that would be like 2032, and then you would have um something like 20 inaugural men and 20 inaugural women from the first 25 years, or maybe 25 and 25 from the first 25 years that would get the first ballot invites, something to that extent. But Hall of Fame is always an interesting one. And with a sport that has a hard time like defining specific things anyway, like do you give a guy like Adam Neifert a bid to the Hall of Fame, who's been to the games a million times on a team and coached a 2 times games athlete? Like I think he would be a strong candidate, but how does he stack up against Graham Holmberg, who won the games in one time?
I think what you could either have different classes, like you could have like coaches or something like that, or like what WWE does is like they just anyone that's impacted the sport. It's not just athletes; it's also like it could be managers, it could be broadcasters, just whatever, and they make it one big gala event. And I've always think whenever you do something like that, you need to have it like how they have the athlete dinner, before the games or something like that. You do it that same time. You do the athlete dinner / Hall of Fame, and you open it up to the public. We sell tickets to it and stuff like that. And I think it's really cool. And plus, it gives those greats to be in front of the fans and feel that adulation once again. But yeah, they another thing is to do categories as well. But it'd be like you could have a historical ones, kind of like what Major League Baseball does, where they kind of have like it's kind of like I forgot what the legends or something like that. But
Be on the
thanks, bro.
lookout. I know that there is footage of the full match of Con and Riley. We dropped the feed for a short amount of time during that, so we're trying to sync up the audio the best we can, and we'll
Mhm.
post that at some point because it was a really really cool match.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, we know,
Yeah.
we know, and we're aware of it, and we're already working on it.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, we're gonna do this again. I'm sorry. Whether you liked it or not, there's not many options. And credit to Brian when I was telling Brian, no, we're not ready, and maybe we weren't, but Brian loves taking a challenge, and the team we rallied around him and rallied around everybody that was involved with it. Everyone from Chase to Bill to our volunteers. It was something. It was something not really. No one wanted to take do it.
You're good at
But
a lot more than that, Jonathan. Man,
yeah, definitely.
Jonathan actually he gave me some really positive physical touch and words of encouragement this week. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah. So, but we appreciate that, doing your best and stuff like that. But the thing is, I think that's the thing that that's cool. We appreciate you guys saying it, really do. But doing your best, it's like we're not here to get participation trophies. We're here to provide something meaningful to the community and do right by the community and to showcase the athletes and the community. And maybe we might have came
You
in.
know, Savan said something yesterday that meant a lot to me.
Mhm,
He said, as Andrew was being, critical of the decision to hire us more than anything else, I would say.
mhm,
And Savan said, hey, for my purposes, as someone who wants to watch the competition, see the athletes move, see the races unfold, watch the athletes finish the event, I got what I wanted. I was able to watch and I was able to do a show that could talk about what happened on the field of play because of what those guys did. He had empathy for the fact that it was a very challenging circumstance, as John did in his comment today, which we appreciate. That doesn't mean that we're satisfied. Like
no.
I, it's very rare that I've streamed any event and been satisfied. I'm always looking for ways to refine and improve. And people that watch it um, very acutely will see those things that develop over time. And when it comes to doing a POV live stream on a phone, I've had a lot of practice and a lot of opportunities to make mistakes and refine, make mistakes and refine, make mistakes and improve. Go back to Roderick, go back to Barkley, go back to Chad and Patrick and these guys, and ask them and brainstorm and troubleshoot and problem solve. And this is our first time to do this. Dylan knew that. We knew that.
The
We knew
Loud and
that
Live
there would
team.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone knew that. Loud and Live embraced us as a part of their team. We worked with them very closely in the run up to this. I learned more about those people and have more appreciation for them as humans and as employers of Loud and Live, workers, co-workers, peers than I ever have had before. And I hope that we get another chance because um, to me, I don't view it as a failure, but it's far from what we're capable of doing.
100%. I don't think we failed. I think again, if anyone, we failed what we had in like a vision we had. We knew there were going to be some. I mean, let's talk. I mean, the broadcast. If they would have went with the normal broadcast or brought in another entity, they would have. I mean, we've seen it. There's always been problems. And like John said, the cards were stacked against us, and it wasn't easy. That's why no one else stepped up, and you know, and we're fine with that. I'm proud of everything. Oh, you guys, I was proud to be a part of it, and I can't wait to do more of them. And hopefully, we get the opportunity, like I said, to do that because what we did see was improvements and learning, and we took notes. We're listening to everyone what they have to say, and all we're going to do is build upon that. It it costs money to put on some of these productions. Now we have some of that. We have that equipment invested now to do that, and now we know what other things additional we need, whether it be more people or more better trained people in certain aspects. But yeah, we're only going to get better. It's only going to get better, and I know at the end of the day, we're going to put something out there that everyone's going to enjoy, that fits the vision of what you wanted it to be.
Well, not everyone. There's always people that bitch according to T-Bird,
Yeah,
but
I mean, yeah. Well, it's just like some people just want to watch freaking, Rome burn. It's fine. I will tell you who is always a supporter of us, and for one more day, you can get 20% off without even using a code, and that's HGR CBD right now. Everything on their website for the month of January. So that's one more day, 2 more days, 30 days in January, right?
uh,
Yeah.
uh,
30. Well, end of January, till the end of January, you get
I don't
20%
feel
off
like
everything on their shelf. So I would highly suggest you do that. It saved Brian's life out there. Oh, 31. So you got like 3 days. You got 3 days, 20% off everything on site at HGR CBD. Thank you, Prathika. Also, additionally, like I said, we talked about them before. They are not sponsors of us, but I wanted to recognize them because I mean, Brian will tell you there were moments during the weekend I was just really grouchy, and wasn't really feeling it. But and a lot of it had to do because I was hangry, really was hangry. So I want to give a shout out to Asian Flavor Punch. Um, Go to their website. I mean, like I said, they're at every CrossFit event now, but they do athlete meals. They have a retail store. I'm actually, as soon as we get out the show, since security took it away from me, I am gonna buy the teriyaki sauce if I can find it. Oh yeah, Bottle, you get merch here. Yeah, I need to get the teriyaki sauce sent to me ASAP. um, but yeah, shout out to them for feeding us. Yeah, so
hey,
with
this
that,
was let's see, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25. This is my 8th year at Wodapalooza, TYR Wodapalooza this year. I thought it was awesome. I think the change of venue was positive. I think that the change to the announcement for next year is going to be great. I'm grateful for all the different opportunities that we had this weekend and all the people that were there. I'm also grateful for the mistakes that were made and the lessons that were learned. Like that's part of life, in the professional realm, in the personal realm, in every realm. Like that's part of it. We'll learn from it. We'll grow. We'll get better. And we encourage you guys to do the same in everything that you're doing. As far as event coverage, we got a weekend off. There is TFX happening this weekend. We covered it last year. We won't be there this year. I need a break, quite frankly, for a week. So I don't know how many podcasts we'll necessarily do, but next week we'll be back. Fittest of the Coast in South Carolina. It's one of the coolest events that I did last year that I had not been a part of before. Kyle Oland and the team have been working away. I've seen the workouts, I've seen the rosters, I've seen the venues, and it is going to be special. If you're in the South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida area, Southeast, and want to head over there, it's a really cool spot to watch competition. You get an intimate experience with some top level athletes from the region, a couple guys that are traveling far away to be a part of it, like Mike Olivas, Pool Boy, and his girlfriend, who is also we saw down in Miami competing. So we'll have a preview show. We'll have a preview show next week, and the live coverage coming from there from Charleston. It's Super Bowl weekend, but we'll be covering fitness because that's what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do. You know what else we do? We wish everyone here and thank them all for their support. And all we do is no matter what day or how you feel or how hangry you are, be friendly, our friends.